The Titans fired head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a 4-19 record as Titans head coach, including a 1-5 record this season. And we have another Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight at 4:15. It's Bills versus the Falcons, and at 5:15, it's the Bears and the Commanders. Let's get walking for the 100,000 San Diegans with dementia. Join Alzheimer's San Diego on October 18th at Balboa Park for the Walk for ALZ. It's free, and all donations provide support to those with dementia in San Diego County. Visit alzsd.org/walk.
Shildt walks away.
What I saw him do is take a team that felt like they were sort of afloat and galvanize them.
Padres manager Mike Shildt retires with 2 years left on his deal, saying the grind of the season took a toll on him. The Aztecs.
Dangerous throw, intercepted by Chris Johnson. Blockers out in front, down the sideline, and in for the touchdown.
A road win up in Reno and bye week to get ready for Fresno State. Now live from the studios of San Diego Sports 760, it's John and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is hour one of John and Jim. There's a saying in this business that anytime Jim leaves, something happens. I don't know if it's true or not, but Jim is on hiatus today. Typically, I would like call him out for that, but I'm actually going to be gone for a few days this week, traveling to see family. We have an interesting week here on John and Jim, but we're with you, me and Brent, for the next 4 hours. And of course, we didn't necessarily expect this, but we're going to talk about it for the better part of the next 4 hours. And Kevin Acey, our Padres insider, will join us coming up at 2:30. And listen, if you're driving around this afternoon and you just want to kind of clear your mind or share your thoughts on what's played out here with Mike Shildt and just another chapter in this Padres series that like never ends, man. It's such a soap opera with the San Diego Padres, but we would love to hear from you. Where should they turn next? How did this go in this manner? Like, where did this go south? 877-767-4760. Again, 877-767-4760. I would start by saying this. There's always more to a story. There's always more to a story. If you take this on its face, then go listen to the flagship. Because Mike Shildt didn't just retire. Okay? He retired. And if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm saying it in quotations. But Mike Shildt didn't just retire. That's not the end of the story. That's not hook, line, sinker stuff, right? We're not wiping our hands of that. We spend too much time on this team. They have too many resources in place. This is big boy professional sports. Now, I'm not telling you that Mike Shildt was forced out. I'm not saying that it was anyone's decision other than Mike's. But Mike Shildt, a 57-year-old baseball lifer, didn't just decide today to retire. Okay, there's a reason why there was silence last week with the organization. This has obviously been in play for a period of time, but Mike Shildt didn't just retire. It's not just because, hey, I've had a great career and I'm going to kick my feet up. And yeah, I spent the last 35 years in professional baseball and I just feel like now is the time to retire. I'm sorry. Like there's more to the story than that. And that's why we're going to hear from Kevin Acey coming up at 2:30. Now, I heard some of Kevin earlier. I read what he wrote. And I'm not telling you that Mike Shildt didn't make this decision. I think ultimately Mike Shildt made this decision. But think about the way these two seasons have played out. Okay, just think about it. Take a step back for a second on these last two seasons. Good regular seasons. But what have we said really over the last half decade? Ever since they signed Manny Machado, ever since their resources went from, very limited when you think about small market, big market conversation, that whole flipped, right? Under Peter Seidler's ownership, right? That whole thing flipped. They turned baseball on its head. And all of a sudden you get to the postseason as often as the Padres have gotten to the postseason 4 of the last 6 years. And the expectation has risen. It's a lot like San Diego State with its basketball program. I think most Aztec fans would tell you it's not just the goal of San Diego State. I think Brian Dutcher would tell you this. His goal isn't simply to make an NCAA tournament. It's to make a run in a tournament. It's not always easy to do. I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm not blaming Mike Shildt because they lost in 3 games to the Chicago Cubs. He doesn't swing the bat. It's not his fault they didn't score until the 9th inning of game 3. It's not, quote unquote, his fault that they scored 5 combined runs in their last 5 playoff games under his watch. Games 4 and 5 against the Dodgers 2 seasons ago, and then the 3 games this year against the Chicago Cubs. But when the expectations rise, and when the organization is quoted in off seasons and at trade deadlines about reaching a desired goal of a World Series and bringing a championship to the city of San Diego. Shoot, AJ Preller is quoted as saying that today in the press release that the Padres sent out. And like, we all understand that at the end of the day, the only true satisfaction at this point for a franchise that's been around since 1969 and has been in the postseason 4 of the last 6 years, you got to win in the postseason. And unfortunately for Mike Shildt, and again, I'm not blaming Mike Shildt entirely for this. I think they all bear blame. You've heard my take on AJ Preller. I don't think Preller's responsible for the Padres not winning in the postseason, but ultimately one day he will be. You can't be a general manager for a quarter century and not be the general manager of a team that can get to the World Series. And you can't be what the Padres fancy themselves to be. You can't say we desire to win a championship and bring a parade to the city of San Diego and then not make that run. At some point, you're going to need to make that run. And maybe the next manager is the manager to make that run. But we've said it before, and AJ is going to hire another manager. And I just wonder how it all played out. I heard what Brent said in the update. I saw the letter that the UT published from Mike Shildt about it being on his terms, but about the severe toll that it took on him, both mentally and physically. I mean, I understand it. Like, baseball is taxing. There's a lot that goes into it. You're speaking to the media 2 times a day from February 1st until the middle of October. You're the life of being on the road. I get it. I worked in the minor leagues. I think a lot of people realize that. Like, it's not easy. It's not glamorous. There's a lot of inner workings. There's a lot of back and forth. Maybe he's just tired of the 4 a.m. phone calls, right? Maybe he's tired of the clubhouse dynamic. Like, it's probably not he even recognized it when they made the postseason. Remember the day they were celebrating with champagne? It's like, this has been hard. Like, this year has been hard. And I completely get it. I think it was hard on Mike Shildt. I think it was hard on the organization. But I think it's all a factor, is my point. I think all of it is a factor. Is it the toll of working with AJ Preller every single day in this front office? Is it the toll of Manny Machado as your clubhouse leader? Is it the toll of, think about the middle of their year and the opportunities they had in the NOS, and they've never been better than they had in 2025 in recent history, where they took a 1-game lead, but they couldn't get over the hump. And the opportunity that was squandered maybe wasn't in Chicago in the postseason, but was in the regular season when they didn't secure a home playoff series that might have set them up for the way the Dodgers have been set up here this October in 2025. So what changed over the last week? Remember, what Kevin was reporting last week was it was all but guaranteed that Mike Shildt was returning. So between last week, when it was all but guaranteed that Mike Shildt was returning, to today, we see a letter penned from Mike Shildt saying that the job's taken a severe toll on him mentally and physically. Well, it's October. Everyone's burnt out in October that plays and manages and coaches and is an executive. But he's not being asked to manage in October. So to me, there's more to it. I don't think it's as simple as one thing, right? I really don't. But I do think there's more to it than he just walked in and said, you know what, AJ? I've had a great career in baseball, and this is the last day I'm ever going to work in the sport. I don't buy it. I think Mike Shildt works again in professional baseball, whether it's in a front office or as a manager. I do not think he has worked his final day in professional baseball. And I think most would be naive to believe that he has worked his final day in professional baseball. What do you got, Brett?
For me, it kind of, just when he talked about like the physical and mental toll that it took, the first thing that kind of popped in my head was Ty Lue and LeBron. Because remember, the stress of coaching LeBron was so much on Ty Lue that like literally his organs started to shut down and he had to physically retire because it was harming his health. So that was like the first thing that I thought of was, is there that many, stress causing players in that clubhouse that is just, he couldn't take it anymore? Or like you said, it was just the basic stress of, Major League Baseball playoffs. And, it's a stressful thing.
I mean, if you're like, put yourselves in Mike Shildt's shoes. Like, do you understand? And I'm saying this kind of like, whatever, facetiously. Do we all understand what it takes to manage the dynamics and the psyches in a clubhouse like the San Diego Padres? A team that, I mean, think about this. A team that in 2023 had so much talent that they failed despite the talent, right? With all these type A personalities, right? They had Juan Soto on this team. They had a future first ballot Hall of Famer paired with a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Manny Machado. And they were 15 games under 500 at one point that year. And were lucky as hell to finish over 500, but never seriously contended for a playoff spot. We've had Manny Machado being quoted before as saying, "What is this high school baseball?" Right? Like in terms of his leadership styles. Not to put it all on Manny, but imagine managing Manny's ego. Imagine it. Seriously. And now Manny's going to have another manager, and I don't even know if it matters. I'm not putting it on the manager, and I don't know if they're a manager away from making a run. Like, is the difference really, well, now that Ruben Niebla is managing, well, now that, name the manager. Now that, and maybe there is a silver bullet solution. Maybe it is Bruce Bochy. Right? Maybe it is Ruben Niebla. But is it on the manager who, again, plays a role? It's not to discredit what Mike Shildt has meant to the organization. I think he's done a good enough job, despite, the way he converses with the media. He won 90 games. That counts for something. Won a playoff series against Atlanta, but there's been disappointments in there as well. And he did have consistent failures throughout his managerial career in the postseason. That's just a factual statement. Whether it was St. Louis or San Diego, he didn't win at a good enough clip in the postseason. But I can imagine the challenges of trying to manage in San Diego. I mean, I'm not putting it all on Manny, but like the coincidence is, whether it's a coincidence or not, is Manny's been here for 7 seasons and his next manager is his 5th. Same thing with Fernando Tatis Jr. Is that more of a reflection on the organization and the front office, or is it more of a reflection on Manny Machado? Before we break, and there's so much to get to, and Kevin's going to join us coming up at 2:30. We can react to this on the other side. I want to hear from Jesse Rogers. I tend to agree with what Jesse Rogers from ESPN had to say about Mike Shildt's quote unquote retirement, more than just taking it on its face of Mike Shildt just walked in and said, "I'm done. And I'm never going to manage or coach or work in a front office again." This was Jesse Rogers on Foul Territory.
Yeah, and not using the language like quitting or stepping away. I mean, retiring from the manager of the Padres is curious wording. So have to figure that out. I actually know Mike well, as a lot of people do, and this one is a surprise to me. So there's got to be more to this story than just that statement, right? So we'll find out. This team came up short in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs, had really good back-to-back seasons under Mike Shildt. He's done a good job there, but they didn't get past those first couple rounds. So we'll have to see. It's a bit surprising, but in San Diego, change is ever in the wind there with AJ Preller in charge. But we really got to get to the bottom of what that wording actually means, Alana. So I think it's really a surprise to people around baseball. Look, there's a lot of managerial jobs open. So there's not that many great managers out there, according to general managers. He was at least a good one that had good seasons. So this is a bit surprising, but there's got to be more to this story.
There is more to this story, and we will get to the bottom of it. We do want to hear from you. 877-767-4760. That's 877-767-4760. And to further on that report or that content or that soundbite there from Jesse Rogers, we'll hear from Jake Peavy, the former Padres pitcher on MLB Network on the other side. Plus, Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join us coming up at 2:30. There is a ton to react to. Mike Shildt, quote unquote, retires. What's to that story, though? 877-767-4760 is John and Jim. All right, listen for your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to Hallow Scream, SeaWorld San Diego. This year, new horrors awaken. 5 haunted houses, 8 terrifying scare zones, hidden speakeasies, and the thrills of coasters after dark. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, now through November 2nd. Halloween fun for the whole family. For a limited time, kids go free with a paid adult ticket. Visit SeaWorldSanDiego.com. All right, Kevin Acee is going to join us in 10 minutes. We'll get to your calls. We're reacting to the news that Mike Shildt has quote-unquote retired, but on cue. So listen, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I know the inner workings of the Padres front office and I was privy to these conversations. I mean, nobody was, right? This might be a Mike Shildt, John Seidler, AJ Preller, a few others that were intimately involved in how this played out. But Dennis Lin just published an article in The Athletic, and Mike Shildt texted Dennis Lin, and in that text is this sentence: looking forward to what's next and just want to teach the game. So the retirement has only lasted like an hour so far. And Mike Shildt told Dennis Lin that he's looking forward to what's next and wants to teach the game. So like I said, I mean, there's no way, I mean, and assuming Mike Shildt's health is good, and hopefully it is, and he says it's taking a toll on him, and I buy it. Managing in the big leagues, coaching in professional sports, to Brent's earlier point, college sports, this is not easy, right? This is a massive commitment that takes a toll on a player, their family. It can impact your livelihood. Of course it can. But this 57-year-old that has spent his entire career, his entire life working in professional baseball, just all of a sudden got up and said, I'm done. I'm never going to work in baseball ever again. Also in the text that Dennis received on Monday, and this is at The Athletic, I'm very pleased with the decision. It has taken a toll on me and didn't have it in me to lead another team to a 90-plus win season and World Series run, exclamation point. So again, I think you take some of that on its face and you take some of it to say that there's more there. There's more there. You don't spend 30 years working in baseball. And remember the way it ended in St. Louis. It was abrupt, philosophical, right? Philosophical differences. And nobody's saying that here. AJ Preller is congratulating Mike Shildt on his tenure. Mike Shildt is thanking the Padres organization for the opportunity. But there's more to it than just this. And I think some of it speaks to the fact that the goal this year and last year was not just to make the postseason, but to make a run in the postseason. He was a good regular season manager. That has been really the story of Mike Shildt's baseball career. He's been a good regular season manager, but he has not taken a team to a World Series. And at the end of the day, and I would argue he certainly could have had another season or two to accomplish that. But look at the last 5 playoff games the Padres played in. Didn't score against the Dodgers in games 4 and 5. Barely scored against the Cubs, let's be honest, in this 3-game series. They scored 5 runs. I mean, they scored 5 runs in a 3-game series. They were shut out in the 9th inning of game 3 at Wrigley Field before Jackson Merrill hit a solo home run. So he didn't get the job done. I'm not putting it all on him, but they didn't get the job done collectively in the postseason. And hopefully the next manager is the one that can help take this team further because, you know, now you've got a core that's aging. Is this the best job out there right now in baseball? There's 9 vacancies this offseason. One's been filled, the Texas Rangers. Maybe you would have wanted to talk to Skip Schumacher, although I don't know if he was coming back. Is Bruce Bochy a pipe dream? I don't know. I'm not here to tell you who they're going to hire, right? This is all played out in the last handful of hours, and there'll be time to discuss who they're going to hire. Should it be Ruben Niebla? You wouldn't want to lose Ruben Niebla as you've just lost your manager. But then again, if you move Ruben Niebla, 18 inches over, what does that mean for your pitching staff? Because you don't want one hole to create 2 if you move Ruben Niebla over, right? You can't be a defensive coordinator and a head coach. I mean, you can, but you get the point. It's harder to accomplish all things when you go from pitching coach to manager, although he has expressed a desire to manage. So we'll see how that all plays out in the days ahead. They're not going to hire a manager today. AJ Preller is going to speak with the media tomorrow on this decision and on the Padres offseason plans. But there's a lot to get to, and we'll do it with Kevin. I do want to hear from Jake Peavy and Steve Phillips, because again, this led me down the path that he didn't just walk in and decide to retire. I think there's more to it. Jake Peavy literally works in the Padres front office. But listen to this on MLB Network. It includes commentary from Steve Phillips and Jake Peavy.
General thoughts on this happening?
Yeah, surprised by it because what I saw him do is take a team that felt like they were sort of afloat over the last 2 years and galvanize them and bring them together.
Absolutely.
They played some really good baseball. And look, they had some injuries down the stretch. Obviously, the loss of Jason Adam and Laureano in the postseason hurt them a little bit. But I thought he did a really nice job. A lot of big personalities there. They didn't hit a lot of home runs, yet they still won games. And so I thought he did an excellent job. Now, remember, he was in St. Louis previously, and one of the word on the street then was that there was a little bit of a clash with the analytics, with the front office and everything else. So my initial thought went to, I'm shocked by this, but I wonder, does this mean that there was something that wasn't working relationally in between the front office and himself?
Okay, and Jake, a former outstanding pitcher with the Padres. Now you're still with the Padres, but what can you tell us?
Well, I'll tell you, he did a fabulous job during his time there. He got really close with Peter Seidler as a special assistant and really understood the Padres of who they were and what they were about, what they needed. He brought that to San Diego and again, delivered winning as he did in St. Louis. I do think Joe Madden is on to something when he talks about how R&D and new school analytics match up with such an old school fundamentally based guy. It makes for tough conversations at times for you to jibe. And I know there is probably some of that going on.
He didn't seem to be like in his actual managing. He didn't seem like
he's an incredible. He's an incredible manager, and for that baseball ops staff, they give the manager free reign. And Shilt's making the lineup and making the moves. And you just heard Joe Madden. He makes incredible game management moves in that. And from what I know and what I did see, I thought he did a fabulous job and had this team poised and ready to win. He will find himself on his feet and get even another opportunity.
He will find himself on his feet and even get another opportunity. From Jake Peavy, who works in the organization, but Mike Shildt said today that he had retired and done it on his own terms. So it's an interesting story that's playing out right now in real time. We'll try to get to the bottom of it with Kevin Acee, our Padres insider. He was the first to report on this. Mike Shildt retiring at the age of 57 with 2 years left on his contract after taking the Padres to the postseason and back-to-back 90-win seasons. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, joins us next on John and Jim.
This report is sponsored by Anderson Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his contract, said, quote, "The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally," end quote. We'll have more of that with Kevin Acee in a moment. Game 2 of the ALCS between the Mariners and Blue Jays is underway. Right now in the bottom of the first, the Mariners have a 3-2 lead with Toronto has a runner on first. Game 1 of the NLCS between the Brewers and Dodgers is set for 5:08. It's going to be Blake Snell for the Dodgers and Aaron Ashby for the Brewers. In NFL news, Titans fired their head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a 4-19 record as Titans head coach, including a 1-5 record this season. And we have another Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight at 4:15. It's Bills Falcons, and then at 5:15 the Bears take on the Commanders. Need HVAC this month? Get 0% for 18 months on a new system. Schedule your free proposal at andersonpha.com. Anderson, fast, reliable, wow.
No offseason for Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, back with us on John and Jim. And Kevin, I think you were the first to report on the news that Mike Shildt had retired. So we appreciate you taking time, because you should be probably sipping on some drink somewhere, but you're covering this news here today. So we appreciate you hopping on. So I guess what changed between the end of the season and it appeared as if Mike Shildt would be returning? What changed over the last handful of days? And thanks for hopping on.
Listen, I believe it's absolutely true that Mike, needed to step away, that Mike made the decision for his health, ultimately, that's what needed to happen. We may never know everything that went into this. I mean, we just might not. I mean, because it is so extraordinary that a man would walk away from at least $4 million and perhaps, up to $6 million. We don't know what Mike was owed. And we also don't know if he really walked away from all of it. I mean, there's some unknowns, but I can tell you based on, reporting, and I've been reporting on this story for longer than, you might think, and conversation with Mike yesterday. He is worn out. He needed a break. He was tired. He's worried about his health. So that is what I believe that is to be totally true. What other stuff there? I guess we'll find out, or just as likely we won't find out if there was any other aspects that made it so that now was the time that Mike is gone.
Do you believe when he says, though, he's retired, and like you said, maybe we'll find out if there's been some type of terms with the organization? Did he really walk away from 2-year salary, or did they come to terms? Has he actually retired a baseball lifer at 57? I get it. At the end of a long season, I'm sure it is taxing. These are tough jobs. But a 57-year-old man, hopefully in good health, that's been a baseball lifer, has he worked his final day in professional baseball?
No. I mean, come on. We know what retired means in a lot of these instances, and I can't imagine that Mike is done with baseball. Now, who knows what that is? I mean, is player development? Is it college? Is it some sort of ministry where some FCA thing? I honestly don't know what it is. I do know that once you've had one of these 30 jobs, you want it, and it was a big deal for him to walk away. But he is a baseball lifer. There is nothing else. And to that end, I wish him well, that maybe there can be some other, who am I to say that someone should have a more well-rounded life? That's not what I'm saying. But that there is something else out there for Mike Shildt, because eventually baseball does end for anybody. And that means it ends at midnight, or it ends at some point in your life. And I would love to take Mike Shildt at face value, that whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever his business, that Mike does work on his health, because he assured that he is in good health, as in there is no illness or anything, but that he is in bad health, in that, you've been there. You got 2 gigs going, at least, that I know of. You've been there, those busy times of sleep. Wake up, eat, go to work. Sleep, wake up, eat, go to work. Over and over. Mike Shildt did that for 8 months of the year, and a manager's job is 12 months. But that's what Mike Shildt did, and he's not he's not happy with where he's at.
That's fair. Kevin Acey's our Padres insider is with us right now on John and Jim. I'm kind of asking for opinion here. What's a harder part of managing the Padres, or even the role that Mike Shildt was in the last 2 years? Is it working with the front office led by AJ Preller, or is it the clubhouse dynamics of this specific team with the high-priced players, Manny Machado, not just Machado, but others? Is it the clubhouse dynamic or the front office dynamic?
That's a tricky question, because here's where I will be very careful every time I answer a question. Is the narrative regarding AJ Preller is going to taint anybody who hears my answer. So I want to make sure that I'm letting you know that a lot of the narrative is garbage or is off base. And look, I spent a lot of time in my life in the last few years and time today talking with people who've worked with AJ Preller and people who've worked with Mike Shildt. And these people who've worked with AJ Preller, talk about that the narrative is false. He's not he doesn't tell his managers what to do. That managers of the Padres have more autonomy than most. Is it difficult to work with him if you're in the manager's chair? Yeah, you know what? I imagine it is. I imagine it is, and I base that on my knowledge of what it's like to some extent. But also, I imagine that it's difficult to work with a lot of very successful people and high-powered people and highly driven people. So I just want to make sure that's out there. But I want to say also, yeah, that's probably the more difficult, demanding thing. But the clubhouse thing is real too. And maybe a new voice. Mike had the clubhouse. They won 183 games over the last 2 years. But maybe there is somebody they can work with and get more out of certain people.
He had this veteran coaching staff, right, that was retained from 2024 to 2025. As in, I guess my question is, would this be a surprise to his coaching staff that this decision was made right now or not?
Depends on which ones you asked. And yeah, veteran kind of,
right,
but not really. I mean, a lot of player development guys, a lot of guys who come up from the minors. And my understanding is there's some really good coaches on that staff, but not super vet guys.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, some were caught by surprise today, and actually all were caught by surprise to some extent today. Yes. But Mike is also, and I would take him at face value here, and am I going to betray a lot of stuff here? But I think that you can believe Mike when he said that he was thinking about this during the season. I also think you can believe, and look, I was around it, and I've talked to other people who were around it. It's not like you got less out of Mike Shildt once he started thinking about this. He was all in. But this is whatever prompted it to happen now. I 100% believe this is something Mike Shildt was thinking about in September and perhaps earlier.
Kevin Acey is our Padres insider. So just taking it back to the Padres and the impact on the team and the clubhouse and where they go from here. You know better than I do, but Manny Machado's had, 4 managers in 7 seasons. Same thing with Fernando Tatis Jr. Yeah. I'm talking specifically in San Diego. His next manager will be his 5th. I don't know if it's the end all be all or not, but what's the impact here? Right? What impact is this going to have on the team? Another managerial, decision to be made by AJ Preller in this front office.
Yeah, I don't think it should be discounted, but I think it can be overestimated. I think we've talked before about these players by necessity are the most self-centered people I've ever known in my life. Not just Padres players, I'm talking baseball players, and I'm talking professional athletes. And they're going to go play. Now, here's what you're looking for in a manager: is the guy who's going to get that extra 10% out of them, right? That's going to make them the best players they can be, either through baseball fundamentals, but also motivation over 6 months plus then what's turned into a pretty important month for the Padres, October. And so, like I said, that's something that needs to be addressed, man. They got to stop this. I mean, this is ridiculous. And sorry, a little bit of that's from the beat writer who's covered 183 wins and 2 playoff appearances, and now it's covering another managerial search. So I'm kind of tired of it. But to answer your question, John, that needs to be addressed, and I think it is somewhat significant. But I'm going to tell you that it's not going to affect Manny Machado's slugging percentage
Right.
at all next year.
No, it's fair. No, I'm talking myself in circles as I react to some of what you're saying, and I'm just thinking about it. Like, I think back to Mike Shildt when he left St. Louis. It was philosophical differences. We're hearing none of that, to your point, none of the reporting, none of the commentary coming out from the statements from the Padres or the letter that the UT published from Mike Shildt. But with all that being said, philosophically, will the Padres continue down this path? As in, will it be an internal hire or an external hire? I ask it specifically about some of the baseball strategy that Mike Shildt implemented, specifically in the second half of 2025. Is that who the Padres want to be? $1 billion invested in their lineup? Do they want to get someone on, move him over, and then get him in? Or do you expect that philosophy or philosophically to change?
Well, I think, and I'll just go, some of this is what I'm saying is based on things I talk to people in the organization about, and then I'm extrapolating a little bit and just kind of giving you my thoughts here.
Yeah.
I think Mike Shildt, to some extent, reacted to the team he had.
Right.
So that is then, does the philosophy, the hitting philosophy, hey, Fernando Tatis Jr., left field, Petco Park, pretty good place, hit some bombs. You know, do we need to work more on, hey, Tatis pulls, you know, like the hitting philosophy for certain guys, it may be team wide, could then change how the manager uses the manufacturing of runs, the small ball and all that stuff. I want to defend Mike Shildt on that to some extent. And the players that were given the freedom by Mike Shildt to do some things that Mike Shildt didn't always agree with and maybe should have made sure didn't happen. I don't know. But like, he was also aware of who his team was. And we're all talking about the 2-run homer that could have been hit, but I'm going to sit here and say it probably wasn't going to get hit. So like, I think Mike did a really good job in that way. But your point is absolutely valid. They are looking at their philosophy offensively.
This is not 100% being like, I'm not actually asking this question, but I'm kind of asking this question. Does Manny get a say in this? In the hire? Is he always, right? Always,
but not like, oh, we can't do this or we're gonna do this. I would even say it's not gonna be we're gonna do this because of Manny. But look, he has a say in almost everything, at least like, hey, let's hear what Manny has to say, right? Let's hear what Bogey has to say, right? I don't mean to use all nicknames here, but, that's how they would talk. Let's hear what Joe has to say, right? Like, and then also, hey, let's consider the personality of our team as we are deciding who to be the manager.
Kevin, do you believe, I think this has been reported maybe by yourself, and you have the inner workings better than I do. Does Ruben Niebla, he wants to manage in the big leagues, is that correct? And he would be interviewed in this scenario?
Yeah. I believe there's 100%. I believe it's close to 100% that he'll be interviewed. I do not have any clarity right now onto, who those candidates really are. There's a few that you could safely assume, would be interested and that they would interview. And without a doubt, like, it would be insulting to not interview Ruben and to maybe find out things that you don't know already about his ability to manage. He's highly thought of, like really highly thought of. There is not another coach. There's no one besides Mike Shildt that talks to AJ Preller and Josh Stein and other people in the front office more than Ruben Niebla does because of his how much they respect him, but also he's the pitching coach handling the very important part. 13 players. So yes, without a doubt. It's highly intriguing.
Does it, just a final question or two, do you feel as if, let's say it was filled with Niebla, do you fill a hole by creating another? As in, they already have a very good pitching coach. He's not going to be the manager.
And they have a very good bullpen coach. They have a very good bullpen coach who I would think in the coming days, weeks, you'll hear that Ben Fritz is interviewing or has been, the people have asked permission to interview Ben Fritz for their pitching coach jobs, right? So, because with managerial openings come pitching coach openings in a lot of cases. And, my understanding, talking to a couple of people today, is that's the case. So, okay, if that's the case, then it also makes sense that Ben Fritz could just be elevated and you have your manager, you have your same group, basically.
Last one, because you're going to see it every 2 seconds on social media. What about Bruce Bochy?
Nah, I mean, Bruce and the Padres have both kind of said, I've talked to Bruce Bochy since the middle of the season. So I can't say right now, but I'm saying in the past, both times that they've sort of courted or danced or flirted or whatever. It hasn't been, a fit. And I just don't know that either side would think it is now. I can certainly see the merits, but how long is Bruce Bochy going to manage? What do we really know about that? And, is it more than 2 years? Is it more than 3? Gosh, could you hire someone now and have some, at least have some thought that you're going to keep them for more than 2 years?
It's like deja vu all over again. I think that was the initial plan with Bob Melvin. I think it was probably the plan with Mike Shildt heading into 2025 or coming out of it, but it's a fair point. When is the next 3-year manager for the Padres? It's been since now Andy Green. To have a manager last more than 2 years, which is somewhat incredible. Kevin, great reporting. We appreciate you.
Should we just give him some kudos? Andy Green. Twice as long as anybody else.
I know. I mean, that is kind of ridiculous when you look back on it. He was here 4 years.
And the expectations were pretty out of whack, and everyone knows I'm a fan of Andy Green's. I thought, and I also tend to defend people. I push back on narratives, but Andy Green deserved better than he got from San Diego, and I think it's kind of funny that he's the guy who lasted 4 years.
Okay, but to put a bow on it, because I was wrapping up with you, but now you've led me down another path.
Yeah, sorry.
To put a bow on it, yes, he's retired, to your point, and that's fair, but does any of this stem back to the lack of postseason successes with the expectations being higher? You don't score the last 2 games against LA. I'm not putting it on Mike Shildt. There's so much more in it. You score 5 runs against the Cubs. Again, it's not his fault they lost game 3. But failing to get where the organization has publicly stated they wanted to get, right, bring a World Series championship to the city of San Diego, does this have anything to do with falling short when it matters most?
I don't believe that the retirement of Mike Shildt has anything to do with that at all. I don't. No. If that was going to be put somewhere, and I'm not saying that'd be fairly at all, then, probably be put on AJ Preller, right? I mean, what did Mike Shildt do? Certainly batting his, lefty 7-8-9 is not cause for firing. But I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm honestly trying to ponder this as you say it. And I will just say flat out that my reporting says no, but also I just don't even see where it could make sense. But yeah.
Kevin, appreciate you doing it. Thanks for allowing me to go all over the place over the last 15 minutes with you, and hope all is well. Take a day or two for yourself until there's a manager hired.
Talk to you later.
I appreciate it. Kevin Ace here, Padres Insider, brought to you by the all-new Humboldt Casino Resort. We react on the other side. It's John and Jim. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. We will cover this story for 3.5 of the 4 hours today. We will catch up with Andre Hekverdian on the Aztecs. We haven't even mentioned the Aztecs other than in updates. I don't even know if they've been in updates. But the Aztecs are 5-1 and one-handedly at Nevada this past Saturday night. They've got the bye week and then a huge one in Fresno coming up in about 12 days. So we'll get into the Aztecs who are 5-1. What a resurgence here under second-year head coach Sean Lewis, Andre Hekverdian at 3, and then as we typically do, Will Brinson, our NFL insider, senior NFL writer for CBS Sports, joins us each and every Monday at 4:30 p.m. But other than that, from now until 6 p.m., we do want to hear from you. We want to react to the news of the day that Mike Shildt has, quote unquote, retired. Mike Shildt has retired at 57 years of age with 2 years left on his deal. He has retired as managing the San Diego Padres. 877-767-4760. Dave, I appreciate the patience, and you're back with us here on John and Jim. Thanks for calling.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I mean, it's quite a day for Jim to be gone, but nonetheless.
Yeah, seriously, Jim.
Hey, look, quickly, if we're looking for some positive news here, 5-1 Aztecs, 99% certain they're going to get to a bowl game, and that's good news for us today. I think we need some. So props to the Aztecs and props to John Schaefer for doing some great play-by-play. So having said that, back over to Mike Shildt. I want to give props also to Ben Fletcher. I think throughout his program, he raised the question why. And what frustrates me, and I think a lot of people the most, is that this organization, and to be fair to the Padres, a lot of sports organizations operate the same way. It's this constant cloud of ultimate secrecy in which they try to promote this green grass. Everything's beautiful on the top, but you lift up that grass underneath, John, and it's full of worms and insects. And I am certain that in the meetings that they had last week, Mike heard things that were not favorable to his liking, one of which could have been, and most likely is that AJ is probably not going to be returning. And that would be the one thing, given the fact that those two guys are joined at the hip, that would drive Mike crazy and send him out of here the way he did, amongst the other issues, of course, that have been brought up. But when you think about it, what's the one thing that he has adored, and it's been a mutual admiration society between the general manager and Mike Shildt, is that relationship. And if that is threatened to be fractured, my opinion is, and I think it's close, that this may not be long-term for AJ as well. And they can't hire anybody until they find another general manager. That's for darn sure.
Dave, appreciate the call. I mean, here's the thing. That's you're theorizing. We'll see. I mean, the fact that AJ Preller made some obscure random signing of some Korean high school or whatever, right? He did that a week ago. The fact that AJ Preller is the one that's putting out statements on behalf of the organization, the fact that AJ Preller tomorrow is speaking on the Padres offseason plans and on the retirement of Mike Shildt. If AJ Preller is not long for this organization, that to me is a way bigger story than what's played out today with Mike Shildt, truthfully. Like, I don't think anything the organization has shown us would indicate that AJ Preller will not be here in 2026. Now, is something looming over the organization his long-term future? Yeah. I mean, to the best of our knowledge, he's not under contract beyond 2026. To me, that likely does change. I mean, at some point, you get a contract extension or you don't, but aren't the indicators that AJ Preller is going to be back? Again, I can't guarantee it, but he's speaking with the media tomorrow. He put out a public statement today, and he signed some rando out of Korea a week ago. Is AJ Preller really walking this October? If so, this organization is so far behind the 8 ball. All right, we're going to spend a better part of the next 3 hours on this topic, but we will catch up on the Aztecs, who are 5-1. Andre Hekverdian covers the Aztecs for the East Village Times. So join us on the other side, plus much more on Mike Shildt's quote-unquote retirement and where the Padres go from here. We'll get into managerial candidates as well in the 3 o'clock hour. So don't go anywhere. John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Staples. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his contract, said, quote, "The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally," end quote. We'll have more on that later in the show. Game 2 of the ALCS is underway right now. In the top of the third, we're all tied up at 3 between the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Game 1 of the NLCS between the Brewers and Dodgers in Milwaukee is set for 5:08. It's going to be Blake Snell going for the Dodgers and Aaron Ashby going for the Brewers. In NFL news, the Titans fired head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a 4-19 record with the Titans. And we have another Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight at 4:15. It's the Bills versus the Falcons. And at 5:15, the Bears take on the Commanders. Today is not just any day, it's your lucky day. Staples Easy Deal days are extended. Now through October 18th, Easy Rewards members score up to 40% off more than 1,000 products in-store and online. Head to your local Staples store or visit staples.com to save while supplies last. Staples, that was easy.
Shildt walks away.
What I saw him do is take a team that felt like they were sort of afloat and galvanize them.
Padres manager Mike Shildt retires with 2 years left on his deal, saying the grind of the season took a toll on him. The Aztecs.
Dangerous throw intercepted. Intercepted by Chris Johnson. Blockers out in front, down the sideline, and in for the touchdown.
A road win up in Reno and bye week to get ready for Fresno State. Now live from the studios of San Diego Sports 760, it's John and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is hour 2 of John and Jim. We have you covered on the Mike Shildt retirement news and why it may be more than just a retirement coming up in about 15 minutes. But we do want to touch base with Andre Hagverdian, who covers the Aztecs for the East Village Times. What a turnaround for San Diego State in year 2 under Sean Lewis. Now, they'll have this weekend coming up off a bye week, then a massive game in Fresno against a rival. The old oil can will be on the line next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And Andre Hagverdian covers the Aztecs again for the East Village Times. And I guess, Andre, I'll just start with, where are you most impressed with what you're seeing, as in this continued evolution of maybe where they were just a couple of weeks ago off the Washington State game to where they are today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. I think what we've seen over these last 4 weeks and 4 wins is the team checking off kind of boxes of some of the doubts and concerns others may have of them. I think heading into Nevada, the concern was, can the offense travel on the road? They only scored 19 points in 2 road games, but they were able to check that box. Obviously, the defense and special teams, boosted them with 14 points early, but the way the offense went, 3 drives in a row in the second quarter, finishing with touchdowns, I think answered that bell. And just playing a complete game in all 3 phases for the first time, offense, defense, special teams, it was a very impressive performance. I think one of the best ones we've seen from the Aztecs in the Sean Lewis era.
So the first half of the season, again, I think they checked a lot of boxes. I mean, most Aztec fans are signing up for 5-1. They're 2-0 in the Mountain West. They beat Cal. I mean, they have convincing wins on their schedule. Now, the second half, it's kind of unique because the schedule stiffens, right? I mean, you just look at it on paper. Winning teams like Fresno State and Boise State and Hawaii has put together a good year, for example. What do you need to see next from San Diego State as we kind of turn the page on the first half and enter the second half?
Yeah, definitely the schedule gets harder. I think they only have 1 team with a losing record out of the final 6. Obviously, playing Boise State, who's one of the other 2 undefeated teams in the conference, is going to be a big one. But some of these other teams have kind of overachieved that they'll be playing later this season. I think one area that has been the most surprising with the offense is how they've taken care of the football. Only 2 turnovers in 6 games. Penalties have been limited, which has helped them. They're 100% in red zone opportunities, meaning they've scored all 20 times they've reached the red zone. And that obviously helps having a record-setting field goal kicker who hasn't missed. But I think what you'll need to see in some of these tougher games is if they do get behind early, which they haven't been behind very much other than that second half of the Washington State game, how they'll bounce back from that and how they'll kind of deal with that adversity. I mean, winning games by
30 points is great, but the Northern Illinois game, for example, was a good way to show that the team can win close games. But I think they're going to be in more close games moving forward, and they're going to have to continue to show that they can come out on top in those games.
Andre Hekverdian covers the Aztecs for the East Village Times with us right now on John and Jim. Jaden Danigal, the Aztecs' first-year quarterback, the transfer from Michigan. It feels like he's confident. It looks like the game is slowing down for him. What are you seeing right now? Because doesn't it feel like something has kind of clicked here recently for Jaden?
Absolutely. I mean, I think since that Northern Illinois game, where they only scored 6 points, I think, Colorado State, Nevada, I mean, he's looked, calm, efficient. He's not throwing a lot of passes, but he's still racking up over 200 yards, meaning he's making big plays, whether it's a deep pass or he's throwing a short pass and his receivers are breaking tackles and taking it down. So, I mean, he does look like a different quarterback than early in the season. But we also have to remember he hadn't really been playing quarterback for a couple of years, sitting on the bench at Michigan. And so this is kind of his time to go through his own growing pains of the starting quarterback. And as we go into this bye week, I think the coaching staff will have another opportunity to see what he's doing, what he's maybe not doing as well, and kind of fine tune that, because he's going to have to be at his best as we get into the second half of the schedule.
I feel like the expectations heading into the year were very high for the defense. People didn't know what type of jump the team would have overall, but I think people were hopeful this could be a bowl-eligible team. That almost seems like a formality at this point. And people thought they'd have a good defense. I don't know if people thought they would have an elite defense. And this has turned out to be an elite defense, maybe one of the top, I don't know, depending on the numbers you're looking at, maybe one of the top 15 or so in America. What sticks out? I mean, they have NFL caliber players potentially at all three levels right now, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're top 10 in total yards allowed, and I think 6th in points allowed.
Right.
And I mean, they've got, as between Trey White, Chris Johnson, Eric Butler. I mean, those guys I think are guys you'll see play on Sundays. But the complementary guys around them have really stepped up. And Owen Chambliss was a guy that Coach Lewis, singled out this morning at the press conference that we were at, about a guy who stayed healthy after dealing with injuries last year, and a guy with high football IQ that's been able to kind of quarterback this defense, especially with Tana Lutuli missing a few games with injuries, who's the captain of the defense. And so I think, all three levels they have excelled at, and it's hard. I agree with you. I thought the defense would be better than they were last year, but they were not very good last year. So even middle of the pack, of the country would have been better, but to be top 10 in the spots they are on, I think has been a pleasant surprise and a big part of why they're 5-1 right now.
Final one for you, Andre. And again, we can do this. Coaches aren't going to do this, but just kind of looking ahead here, is an appearance in the Mountain West Championship game realistic? It would be hard to say no at this point, with them being 2-0 in the league and 5-1 overall, right?
I agree. I mean, I was looking ahead at the schedule on Sunday. UNLV, Boise State are the only other undefeated teams in the conference. Now, that's only after 2 games. And those two play each other this weekend. So
right.
One of them is going to have a loss. So when they go to when San Diego State plays Fresno State, they're going to be one of 2 teams potentially as undefeated. And I think finishing top 2 is a realistic possibility for this team. They obviously have some tough games coming up, but I don't think it's out of the realm to say that they could finish top 2 and make the championship game. Now they get Boise here in San Diego, which is a plus. They've got a couple road games, but they also get San Jose State here. So the potential to be top 2 and play in that game and maybe even host the championship game, I think is very realistic. And to be talking about that at this point, considering how the expectations and how the season started, I think is very surprising in a good way.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes, but truthfully a month makes, from the loss in Pullman to Washington State to a 4-game winning streak for Sean Lewis and the Aztecs, who are 5-1 overall. Andre, appreciate you taking time for us. Enjoy your writing and reporting in the East Village Times, and we'll connect soon. All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Andre Hekverdian, again, covers the Aztecs for the East Village Times. All right. Back to Mike Shildt, obviously, who announced his retirement earlier today in a letter in the Union Tribune. He has since spoken on it publicly in some form or fashion. There's an interesting nugget out there that was published by the USA Today in an article written by Bob Nightingale. Because remember, on its face, we learned today that Mike Shildt retired. Now, Kevin has since followed up. We had him on at 2:30. If you missed it, you'll hear it coming up at 5 p.m. But Kevin agreed with my overall assessment, which is like, well, hold on. A baseball lifer he's done with baseball? I say, no, he's not done with baseball. He'll work in a front office, or he'll work in player development, or maybe on a coaching staff, or maybe he'll manage again. So, okay, so maybe he hasn't really retired. I mean, he kind of retired from managing the Padres, I guess. But the USA Today publishing today from Nightingale, USA Today, by the way, there's a little bite in there that says, or like a sentence in there that says, Shildt did not respond when asked if the two sides reached a financial settlement or whether he was walking away from his salary. The reason I find that to be a big part of the story is, again, typically you'd be led to believe if someone's retiring, they're walking away. If someone is paid as part of a retirement, hear me out, it's a mutual parting of ways. Now that's a key distinction. And correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm reading that incorrectly. And again, our phone lines are open, 877-767-4760. A true retirement. I worked 40 years for the United States Postal Service. I worked 40 years for iHeartRadio San Diego, right? We got a couple people here that we work with that have worked at iHeart for 40 years. What's up, Mike? A true retirement is I put in my, I'm retiring. I'm walking away. I'm going to spend time with my family. But there's not normally a financial settlement that comes with that. Not normally. Now, again, I get it. Executive levels, ownership, CEOs, presidents. All right, maybe it's a little more convoluted than that. But again, in the USA Today, today, Shildt did not respond when asked if the two sides reached a financial settlement or whether he was walking away from his salary. Well, if he didn't respond, we know the answer, because he didn't respond. So if there's a financial settlement, you know what that means to me? That it was a mutual parting of ways. And you know what that means to me? Mike Shildt will work again in baseball. And if it's not in 2026, I'd be shocked if it wasn't in 2027. I want to react to that on the other side. I want to hear from you. 877-767-4760. We're here until 6 p.m. It's Sean and Jim. All right, hey guys, it is John and Jim again for the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Of course, we've been telling you all about Jamul. You need to get over there because now open is the hotel and spa over at Jamul Casino Resort. It is the next level of luxury. It has arrived. You can treat yourself to a stunning new stay, rooftop relaxation, indulgent spa treatments. More on that in a moment. And all the thrills of Jamul Casino Resort now all in one unforgettable destination. Speaking of the spa, unwind in style. Experience pure relaxation. Doesn't that sound so nice right now? With indulgent treatments, serene spaces, a retreat designed to refresh your body and mind only at Jamul Casino Resort. You can book treatment today, by the way, at jamulcasino.com/spa. You're going to love the food options over at Jamul. You really will. Jamul 23, endless dining every day. Savor San Diego's ultimate endless dining experience at Jamul 23. From their world-famous lobster brunch served every morning to the luxurious VIP endless dining experience each evening, indulgent chef-curated specialties, fresh seafood, prime cuts, and decadent desserts. Make sure to check it out this October at the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. By the way, wrap-up show tonight. Jim will join remotely. He's away. I'm going to be away for the rest of the week. Jim's traveling tomorrow. I'm traveling tomorrow. Jonathan Rifkin, J-Riff, in for John and Jim. His name is John, so it does work. He'll be in tomorrow.
That's the only reason he's here.
Yeah, so otherwise, we have so many better options than Jonathan, but his name is John. J-Riff will join us tomorrow on John and Jim at 2 p.m. Jim will be back with you and whack with you for the remainder of the week. Like, I'm kind of transfixed on this. What we were just talking about a few moments ago, Mike Shildt again retiring, 2 years left on his deal. Like, make it make sense, right? Because if you just take it on its face, it really doesn't. Like, I'm trying to use the analogy. It's like, here's the analogy. Like, I'm the analogy, but here's the analogy. It's like you spend your whole career hoping to get to a point. Okay. So, like, you know, maybe, for example, I'm calling San Diego State football and basketball games, right? That's like a lifelong goal for someone that when I was like 10 years old, I'm like, I want to do play-by-play, right? I want to do sports talk radio. I would love to be able to work and talk sports in a city as great as San Diego for a living. I'm not just retiring. You know what I mean? And there's some things that come with the job that can make it challenging, like any job. But when you get to a point, personally or professionally, where it's almost like a dream job. I'm sure Mike Shildt, who worked as like an intern in the minor leagues, like in umpire rooms, like he dreamed, I'm sure in his 20s, of one time managing in his 40s. He managed the Cardinals, I think, in his late 40s, and then of course is managing here in his 50s. Maybe he was actually in his early 50s when he got his managerial opportunity with St. Louis for a first time. But like, think about that. You work your whole career for something, you reach that point, and then you do the 180 then. Now, there's reasons to do it. You're not in good health. Completely understandable. I guess there's people that in the middle of their career change their careers. You spend 20 years doing something, you say, you know what? This isn't really what I want to do. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to pursue a different passion. Completely reasonable. People deal with it. But Mike Shildt, who's like, right, who has this unbelievable uncanny recollection of anything that happens in any game, where he has no notes in front of him post game, and he's telling you about the second inning and why Jake Cronenworth was shaded towards second or whatever. Like, he knows everything about the intricacies of a game, and just on his own volition, he's walking away on his own volition. But then again, what's published today in the USA Today from Bob Nightingale is that when Nightingale talked to him, Shildt did not respond when asked if the two sides reached a financial settlement or whether he was walking away from his salary, which to me means that he didn't respond because, of course, there was a financial settlement. And maybe that settlement, again, Mike Shildt said wonderful things about the Padres. I'm sure a lot of which are true. And AJ Preller said wonderful things about Mike Shildt. I'm sure a lot of which are true. But if there is a financial settlement and this manager had 2 years left on his deal, then why is he retiring? Right?
Yeah, that's the weird thing, because, you know, we were kind of talking about the last like week and a half about how, you know, waiting to see if Yu's going to retire or not, so they can get that money off the books and use it for other things. And it's kind of the same way. If Shildt really did retire, then he would just be off the books. They won't pay him anymore because he retired. But the fact that he didn't answer it pretty much means that they did have to do some sort of a mutual buyout, I guess you could call it, for, you know, him leaving, opposed to just, you know, when you retire, yeah, some places will give you like a retirement package or something.
Severance. Yeah.
But typically, you know, sports, and when you're a manager and you make millions of dollars, they don't bother to give you a retirement package because you don't need it because you've been coaching long enough. So yeah, that's the thing that's just weird to me, is if you retired, why did you get a payout?
And here's, like, again, to go down this path, Ken Rosenthal, before this Mariners game on Fox today, within the hour, here's a direct quote. Ken Rosenthal spoke with Mike Shildt via text. He told me in a text that he's happy with his decision. And this is now Ken Rosenthal saying this, but unless he's dealing with a serious health issue, it's difficult to imagine him retiring on his own volition. So, okay, Ken Rosenthal said that. We heard earlier from Jake Peavy about Mike Shilt's quote unquote decision. We started the show hearing from Jesse Rogers at ESPN, and Jesse's like, I know Mike Shildt, and this runs opposite of what I know about Mike Shildt as a baseball person. Again, I'm paraphrasing. So I guess I'm proving a point that's already been proven. There's no point really to be proven. My point is this: be skeptical of the retirement, and that's fine. I'd probably prefer a little bit more transparency, but I get it. It's professional sports. There's a public relations angle to it. What actually happened here, here's my best guess. The more that I have allowed my mind to, the more that I've wrapped my mind around it over the last couple of hours, and the more we've talked about it here on John and Jim. When he left the Cardinals, it was philosophical differences, and there was a lot of fanfare as a result. That's a very salacious headline. It's the last thing the Padres would ever want. And I'm not saying there was philosophical differences, but I am saying philosophically the Padres were not the team they fancied themselves to be in the second half of 2025. Who disagrees with that? Philosophically, the Padres were not the team they fancied themselves to be. Now, maybe Mike Shildt did it because that was the only manner in which to grind this season out, to get to 90 wins, give him a chance to win a division, and give his team a chance to compete in the postseason. So, okay, Mike Shildt did what was necessary to get his team to a spot they had to get to, which was the postseason. They drew 3.4 million fans. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were saying just a week and a half ago when the Padres were at Wrigley playing the Cubs. Why is Jackson Merrill bunting on his own? Because it's instilled, right? That's what we're saying. You've heard Jim say that. It was instilled from the top being Mike Shildt in that instance. Is that who the organization really wants to be? When we watch these playoffs play out, and you watch Cal Raleigh last night hitting home runs, and you watch the Blue Jays hitting grand slams, do you think the organization is winning a World Series by getting a guy on and bunting him over and getting him in? Is that the team that's going to win a World Series in San Diego? And I'm not saying that you can just change the manager and snap your fingers and all of a sudden Manny Machado becomes Cal Raleigh hitting 60 home runs. It's not happening. But the investments they've made in Machado, Tatis, Bogarts, Merrill, and others leads me down a path that they need to do more with their offense beyond just squeezing out a run moving forward. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a philosophical difference, but I'm telling you, philosophically, the Padres will look different in 2026. Who are some candidates? Who are some realistic candidates? We'll share on the other side. John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Starbucks. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his contract, said, quote, "The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally," end quote. We'll have more on that coming up here later in the show. Game 2 of the ALCS between the Mariners and Blue Jays is underway. Right now in the top of the 5th inning, we are tied at 3 apiece. Game 1 of the NLCS between the Dodgers and Brewers in Milwaukee is set for 5:08. It's going to be Blake Snell going for LA and Aaron Ashby, I almost said Andy again, going for the Brewers. In NFL news, the Titans fired head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a 4-19 record as Titans head coach. And hey, Mike McCoy was named interim head coach. And we have another Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight at 4:15. It's going to be the Bills and the Falcons. And then at 5:15, the Bears take on the Commanders. The pumpkin spice latte is back at Starbucks, handcrafted with their signature espresso and real pumpkin sauce, then topped with whipped cream, cinnamon, and nutmeg. PSL, get it while it's hot or iced, only at Starbucks.
All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Make sure to download the all-new iHeartRadio app, and when you do it, put San Diego Sports 760 in your presets and put John and Jim in your presets. You can listen to the show live or listen back to any hour or interview, including our conversation with Kevin Acee. If you missed Kevin, it's on the app. You'll hear it coming up at 5 p.m. Mike Shildt has quote-unquote retired from the Padres with 2 years remaining on his contract. So, all right, this for the first time, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on this retirement, and we've got plenty of time this offseason. And, of course, we'll turn the page and talk candidates as they present themselves, and who knows how long this plays out. It won't be for forever. They'll make a hire some point later this month or the very beginning of November. I would want to say this because I think two things are true. That yes, it's atypical and not overly sustainable to change your managers every 2 years or your manager every 2 years, but it's not all that uncommon either at this point in baseball. Like, look around, go to Wikipedia. Go to ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, how long is the typical managerial stint in the major leagues? You know what ChatGPT told me today? 2.5 years. So now it was more, I think it said, I forget what it said, 1998, it was in the neighborhood of like 5.5 years. And then by 2018, it was between 2.5 and 3.5 years. And now it's in that 2.5 to 3 year window. So I'm not saying I like it, and I don't think it's a good look for the Padres. And I don't think you want to turn over your manager every 2 years, especially when you're trying to win at a high level. Like, there's teams that don't. I get it. Dodgers have been winning World Series. They haven't turned over their manager every 2 years, right? There's organizations that have more stability than the Padres. It goes without saying. But it's also not like unheard of to be changing managers, even though the Padres have done it a lot. So when you think about like what comes next for the Padres and like, are they a manager away? Like, I don't look at it like that. We were told they were a manager away when they hired Bob Melvin. We were told they were maybe a manager away, right? It was going to be more cohesive with Mike Shildt. I don't believe they're a manager away. I believe they have pieces that need to perform away, right? They're pieces from performing away from maybe making that postseason run. I believe that their pieces have let them down more than their managers in the postseason, although I don't think Mike Shildt is a good postseason manager. I don't think he was in 2024. I made that point multiple times here and on the wrap-up show. I do not think he managed perfectly in the first 3 games of that Dodger series that they led 2-1, and that includes game 1, that loss at Dodger Stadium when they had a lead. I think they had a 3-run lead in that game, and they pitched to Shohei Ohtani, for example. But that's water under the bridge, right? Or crying over spilled milk. So I don't think they're a manager away, but I don't think you want to get it wrong. So my mind goes 2 ways. A, do you want to not rock the boat and stay internal, so to speak? Because, hey, you've won 90 games the last 2 years. And, hey, you've been to the postseason 4 of the last 6 years. And, hey, of the managerial openings, you won the most games last year, right? You're not the Rockies. You're not even like Atlanta, coming off a year in which they were well under 500, although they dealt with a million injuries. And I could argue that the Atlanta job might be more desirable than the Padres job. But you just say, like, let's continue on this path. We've had a level of success. Let's maintain it. And then you look at the internal options, the Ruben Nieblers of the world, the options that you have in your front office, the AJ Ellis's of the world. All right. Maybe it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but they understand the organization. They have a familiarity with the roster or the dynamics of the front office, and you forge ahead. Okay. You could argue maybe that's safe. Maybe that's smart. I don't know. Or you could say, are we a manager away? Like, do you get fooled if you're AJ Preller into thinking I'm a manager away from winning the World Series? I got to aim for the stars. I need to bring in, I know he's 70 years old, but I'm a Bruce Bochy away. We were sold there a Bob Melvin away. Bob Melvin does not have the managerial chops or accolades of Bruce Bochy, obviously, 4-time World Series winning manager. So just shoot for the stars and say, like, hey, I'm a manager away. Let me go call Bruce Bochy wherever he is now that he's exited Texas. Or do you say, am I sufficing Manny away from getting to a World Series? Do I need to do everything to appease Manny? I think it's a bad strategy. They've done it before. I don't think that's the path to winning a World Series. Just do everything to, fancy Manny Machado. But is that then like the Ryan Flaherty's who played with Manny Machado, who served on the coaching staff before in San Diego? And then there's the others, like, you get Albert Pujols, his name has come up with the Angels. He's never managed, I mean, does he win over a clubhouse? You better believe it. It's Albert Pujols, but like, you're going to deal with the intricacies and the dynamics of managing the big leagues at that level where you're going to win a World Series like year one. I feel like that's wishful. There's the David Rosses, right? Who's a seasoned manager that had time in San Diego as well as a player. And there's other names in there as well. And I'm not going to give you 20 names because we'll hear some names pop up in the days and weeks ahead. But like, that's kind of how I see it, Brent. It's like, do you say, hey, let's be safe. The organization's good. Keep it in-house. I can make the case. Do you say, you know what? I think we're a manager away. Let me call Bruce Bochy or someone of that acumen. Or do you say, let's do everything in our power to appease Manny Machado, who's 33 and going to be here for forever. And let's just bend over backwards for Manny, and whatever he wants is where we're going to go.
I think their choice is going to kind of tell us what kind of window they're internally working with. Because if they would just decide that we're going to, overpay or do whatever we got to do to get Boch to come back, with his age, that means that they're pretty much saying we got about 2 2-year window. Yep. And if we don't get it done within this 2-year window, then we're probably going to blow it up and, start over and start the rebuild. If they go with somebody that isn't Boch, it means that maybe they're thinking a little longer term than just, past 2 years, to where maybe they're not in as big of a rush. And I don't know. I think the Manny thing is going to come around regardless of who they hire, because it's like Kevin said, he's not going to have the final word, but he is going to have a say in it. And they are going to go to him and be like, so Manny, what do you think about Bruce Bochy? And they're not just going to hire him and then be like, oh, hey Manny, we hired the coach. It's Bochy's back.
Right. I mean, do you agree that it seems wishful to say that they're a manager away?
Yes.
And that's not to discredit the importance of a manager. It really isn't. I just feel like that's taking it too far. We say, well, you know what? Melvin and Shildt couldn't do it, but this manager can.
It was different the year we lost to the Phillies, because you could point to certain decisions that the manager made that you could say, if we had a different manager in there that would have maybe done things differently, we might have won the series and, advanced. So it's different with this because he didn't really, there's nothing that you can really pinpoint to that can be like, oh yeah, if he did this better, is, the team didn't hit. It was stuff that was out of his control, other than just telling them to, do better and, hit. There isn't really much he could do about it. It's like I said, it's not like the Phillies series where you could just go, oh, you shouldn't have put this guy in there, or you should have brought in this guy in the relief then, or why didn't you use Hader and all these things, to where this year is just like, well, they just didn't hit. It wasn't anything except for like maybe the bunting thing, but there wasn't anything directly that Shildt did.
I mean, listen, I think Bruce Bochy is a phenomenal manager. I think it would be a highly celebrated move. But part of me also says, can you go home again? They had options. They had opportunities to hire Bruce Bochy since he left San Diego. They've had, well, we've talked about it, a myriad of hires under AJ Preller for manager over the last decade. So there's already been a time and place where that scenario maybe could have occurred, and maybe it can occur again in the future. Again, Bruce Bochy's only 70. It's not to say he can't manage. We've seen managers in
Only
their 70s.
70.
No, but in baseball, you can manage in your 70s.
Yeah, Sparky Anderson, way past that.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of examples, I think, recently of guys managing in their 70s. But I also think that if they did bring on Bruce Bochy, I think people would be like, oh, well, that's the missing piece. Now we're going to win a World Series. Then if you don't and you end up with the same result, then where are you turning? Because, it's like, well, then it was Bochy. It's because he's at the end of his career. No, at the end of the day, we all know the reason. And that's to your point, Brent. They didn't hit last year, the postseason at the end when it mattered. They didn't hit at all this year in the postseason. And as the saying goes, you can't fire the players. So, and we knew there'd be a level of accountability. And I'm not saying Mike Shildt, he's the one accountable for it, or he lost his job as a result of what happened in this year's postseason. But I'm also not saying that's not what happened. When a manager retires with 2 years left on his deal, and the team didn't reach the level of expectation it had sought for himself, it's just kind of an interesting conversation. So listen, people are going to be dialed into the managerial search. We're going to spend a ton of time on it on John and Jim. And at the end of the day, we'll still be saying the same thing next October 1st when they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies in a wild card round, that Manny Machado and Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr. need to come through. Now, I will say the dynamic has changed a little bit, because maybe if Shildt returns, you'd be like, can Mike Shildt win in the postseason? Like, can the offense show up for Mike Shildt? And maybe that conversation now changes, because now you'll be talking about a different manager. But I still think when the postseason starts next year, the first talking point for me and Jim, are the Padres going to hit? Are they going to play their best baseball when it matters the most? Or are they going to get tight in these moments like they have when it's mattered the last couple of years? And I don't think we'll be talking as much about the manager as we'll be talking about the players themselves.
I don't feel like we were in a situation either. Like, I'm blanking on the Cubs fired him and then they hired Madden.
Yeah, exactly. The over the hump, man.
To where we're just like, I feel like we've gotten as far as we can get with Shildt, and this is as far as we're going to get. So we got to make a change here because he's plateaued and we've hit his peak.
Rick Renteria.
Thank you. I didn't really have that feeling with Shildt, that it was just like, it felt like, he's gotten us as far as he's going to get us, and that's about it. I didn't really feel like he could maybe get us to the World Series, but I also, like I said, I didn't feel like it just didn't feel like it was on the way out. It didn't feel like it was on a downslide.
Well, here's my question for Padres fans right now. Who would you like to see the Padres hire? Who would you like to see them hire? 877-767-4760, or text us 70470, start it with team, or tag me on X at John Schaefer. Who would you like to see the Padres hire? 877-767-4760 or 70470, started with the word team. We do have tickets to Howl O Scream to give away. So we'll do that coming up later in the show. We also have additional tickets as well, don't we? We have the second annual Howl O Sprint 5K run. Okay, so we'll tell you more about that coming up over the course of the next couple of hours. Will Brinson on this weekend in the NFL get us ready for Monday Night Football as well. And if you missed Kevin Acey, you'll hear our conversation coming up at 5 p.m. Full reaction to Mike Shildt's retirement, quote unquote. Stay with us on John and Jim. All right, hey guys, it is Schaefer again, and there is no better time than now to get down to your local Toyota dealer. They've got new vehicles arriving daily, including their most popular cars, trucks. We'll tell you more about their trucks in a moment, and SUVs. So whatever kind of vehicle you're looking for, hurry into your Toyota dealer today. It is Trucktober, okay? It's that time of year. It's Trucktober at your Toyota dealer. Best time to get into a new Toyota truck. They've got the largest inventory of Tacomas and Tundras. They're ready to roll. The Tacoma is known for its legendary toughness, off-road capability, and everyday efficiency, perfect for weekend adventures or just tackling your to-do list. And the Tundra brings serious power, impressive towing capacity, and bold design, plus the latest tech and comfort features. So whether you need a truck that's built for the trails, built for work, or built for your family's next adventure, Toyota's got you covered. This Trucktober, it's going on now. We make it easy. See your Toyota dealer today. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760, Kevin AC, 5 p.m. Will Brinson on this weekend in the NFL, Monday Night Football, 2 games. He'll join us at 4:30. We're reacting to the news that Mike Shildt has retired. We'll get to the wrap at 4 p.m. And we do have tickets again. We'll give away to Howl O Scream in the 4 o'clock hour. Yeah, it's just an interesting time. As you think about this past year, and Shildt said it, I think, in the clubhouse when they clinched a playoff spot. And he said something along the lines of like, man, it was a tough year. This was a hard year. Like we had to, it took a lot to get this team to the postseason. And I'm kind of thinking back on 2025, and I'm wondering, like, how are Padres fans going to remember 2025? I don't think it's as fondly as 2024. Now, 2024 had the bitter disappointment of losing to the Dodgers in the NLDS and blowing that 2-1 lead. But 2025, like, what are the memories? Like, where are the like? Oh man, I was enamored with that team. Remember those come from behind wins in September? Well, no. I mean, what are you going to remember? Oh, remember that series in Chicago in the postseason? I mean, there's nothing to remember. Oh, remember Manny Machado's real big home run in game 2? Yeah, it was big in the moment until they lost game 3. Remember Mike Shildt? Yeah, he quote unquote retired. Like, what's the takeaway from 2025? Like, is this going to be remembered as a significant year in Padres franchise history, or a little bit of like not a down year, but a bit of a downer?
in a way, for lack of a better term, it's going to kind of be remembered as like a lame duck season in a way, just because, like you said, there's nothing that's really stood out that you're going to be like, oh yeah, when this happened and this happened. It's just going to be one of those, sometimes you go to the playoffs and 5 years goes down the road and you don't remember any of it. There's been so many Cubs playoff series that I don't remember anything about because we got our asses kicked and there was nothing worth remembering about it. And, it's not like the Dodgers series where, you'll remember, being one game away and you remember the 24 scoreless innings or whatever against the bullpen. And, there's things to remember. Granted, they were bad, but there are still things that stuck out to remember. This year, it's, are you going to remember in 3 years? Hey, you remember that series when we, couldn't score any runs?
Yeah, it's like when they bunted. I mean, seriously,
that's not specific enough.
Right. When I look back on 2025, and again, it's hard to discount. You think about Padres baseball and the lean years, and there were a lot of them. I mean, they didn't make the postseason until 1984, which is year 15. And they had made the postseason once between debuting in 1996. So think about that. In 27 seasons, they'd made the postseason one time before 1996 or whatever the math was there. 26 seasons, one postseason spot. So like, I get it. Things have been worse. And look at the level of fandom and interest in the Padres. It is at a fever pitch and an all-time high with the 3+ million fans year in and year out. But like, I think Mike Shildt, here's how I see it as I talk my way through it all day long. I think Mike Shildt is a direct consequence of higher expectations. I think that's what it boils down to. Whatever. Some of the retirement, I'm sure a lot of it is true. Is he worn down? Is it taxing physically, mentally, emotionally? Yeah, I'm sure it is. There's no doubt it is. It's not to discount that. And health matters. So first and foremost, he needs to take care of his health. According to Kevin, who was on earlier, his health is going to be fine. He's not dealing with some significant ailment or illness, thankfully, right? And that wasn't reported on here today, but he did say it's been taxing and it's taken a toll. But when you publicly state year in and year out, we want to bring a championship to the city of San Diego, and when you fall short of that and you don't really get close in the grand scheme, losing to the Cubs at Wrigley in a wild card series is not close to winning a World Series. Shoot, losing to the Dodgers last year in the NLDS, well, they got quote unquote close in the series. This ain't horseshoes or hand grenades, as the saying goes, So when you publicly claim that you want to be the best, when you're nowhere near the best, there are consequences for that. And that's when you get quote unquote retirements and buyouts and changes, whether we like it or not. Some of me, I kind of understand it. Like, if you really are going to be true to your word and say, we want to bring a championship here, then you're willing to do it, whatever it takes. They've invested in the roster. Unfortunately, not all the investments have worked. That's unfortunate, but you can't change them. They have, obviously, look at what they've done with movement in off seasons and deadlines. They've made moves that, in their determination, put them closer to winning a World Series, right? Hasn't worked out that way. The payroll is drastically up over the last decade, not where it was under Peter Seidler, but it's up. A top 10 payroll can compete to win a World Series. The thing that they haven't done is reach that World Series that they so covet and so publicly talk about, that even today, on a day where Mike Shildt retires, there's a statement from AJ Preller saying, we're hopeful to bring a World Series to the city of San Diego in 2026 or something along those lines. So I think he's a direct consequence of higher expectations. And I would be the first to tell you that just because you're bringing another manager in doesn't mean that manager puts you in a better spot to win a World Series. When it all clicks, it all clicks. Maybe that's because of the manager. Maybe it's in spite of a manager. Maybe the players just play well in the biggest moments. Maybe you get the breaks. Maybe you don't. You kind of understand it. So I think Mike Shildt's legacy in San Diego is a solid one. He brought this team to the postseason multiple times. There were multiple 90-win years. They won a playoff series. They were in a ridiculous series against the Dodgers that we don't remember fondly because of the 24 innings that Brent brought up. So it's not like we're going to remember Mike Shildt and be like, man, that guy was a terrible manager. He didn't know what he was doing. He couldn't manage the postseason. No, Mike Shildt is a good manager. Mike Shildt is a good manager. And I don't know if they're going to find a better manager or not. But sometimes, here, I'll tie a bow on it real quick, Brent. Sometimes you got to make bold decisions. And I don't know if today is that or not with this quote unquote retirement. Penn State wants to win national championships. You got to get rid of James Franklin. James Franklin's a good coach. He's won a lot of games. Penn State might not be better off on the other side, but they might be. And if you're going to put chips in the middle of the table, you need to not be scared to lose the chips, right? You need to be able to work in that manner. That's how AJ Preller kind of deals. He deals with chips in the middle of the table with no limits. Until they take them all from you, that's how he's going to live. So like it's a risk reward business. Is there some risk involved in here? Yeah, absolutely. You might end up with a manager that's nowhere near as capable as Mike Shildt. Or on the other side, you find that manager that helps lead you somewhere you've never been before. And we don't know. We'll find out in 2026 and beyond. We'll get to the wrap on the other side. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer for CBS Sports, will join us at 4:30. If you miss Kevin Acee, you'll hear our conversation at 5 p.m. Plus, we're giving away tickets to Howlow Scream at SeaWorld San Diego coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We are here until 6. This is John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is brought to you by Audible. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his deal, said, quote, "The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally." Game 2 of the ALCS between the Mariners and the Blue Jays is underway. And right now in the top of the 6th inning, the Mariners lead 6-3 off of a pair of 3-run homers by Jorge Polanco and Julio Rodriguez. Game 1 of the NLCS between the Brewers and Dodgers is set to go in about an hour at 5:08. It's going to be Blake Snell going for the Dodgers and Aaron Ashby going for Milwaukee. In NFL news, the Titans fired head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a record of 4-19 as Titans head coach. And we have another Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight at 4:15. It's going to be the Bills taking on the Falcons. And then at 5:15, the Bears take on the Commanders. Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. Fall for a brooding Duke, dive into a steamy romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas, or find the perfect rom-com from Lucy Chu. Start listening when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com.
Shildt walks away.
What I saw him do is take a team that felt like they were sort of afloat and galvanize them.
Padres manager Mike Shildt retires with 2 years left on his deal, saying the grind of the season took a toll on him. The Aztecs.
Dangerous throw intercepted. Intercepted by Chris Johnson. Blockers out in front. Down the sideline and in for the touchdown.
A road win up in Reno and bye week to get ready for Fresno State. Now live from the studios of San Diego Sports 760, it's John and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is hour 3 of John and Jim. We continue to react to Mike Shildt's quote-unquote retirement. Also coming up at 4:30, we're going to be joined here on the show by Will Brinson, senior NFL writer for CBS Sports. And if you missed Kevin Acey, you'll hear that conversation coming up at 5 p.m. We'll get to the wrap, but I just had this thought. John and Jim, by the way, no Jim. Jim is going to be back Wednesday. He'll be traveling tomorrow. I'm traveling tomorrow. Jonathan Rifkin in for me and Jim tomorrow. So John and Jim is Jonathan and Brent.
We joked on Friday that something was going to happen because Jim was going to be gone. And every time Jim's gone, something happened.
Oh, something happened. That's exactly right. I wasn't on the show Friday because of the Aztecs, and I'm traveling this week. There's a lot going on, but we have you covered, obviously, on John and Jim. This is our bread and butter. Ask yourself this. When we go back to the manager conversation and the Padres, man, we've had this conversation so much. They need this manager. They need that. They need young. They need old. They need veteran, right? Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion on what the Padres need at manager for the last decade, right? From just so many examples of it. Well, let me ask you this. With the Seattle Mariners on the verge of reaching a World Series, right? The Seattle Mariners, who have appeared in how many World Series in the history of the franchise? Let me answer that. None. Now, they have work to do. They're leading in Toronto. They're on the verge of at least going up 2-0 and heading home. Doesn't mean they're going to win the series. But Seattle, one of the talks of baseball. Is it because of Dan Wilson, their manager? Were they Dan Wilson away when he was made, I think, interim manager at some point in 2024? Or have we watched Cal Raleigh this year? Have we seen their pitching staff, right? Some of the offense, just the ways in which they've won. Did Dan Wilson lead them to that 15-inning win? You know what I mean? Or did they just figure it out? It's not to discredit Dan Wilson. It's really not. I think he's done a great job. And if they go to the World Series or win the World Series, then he's going to be looked at a lot more fondly than he was probably heading in to 2025. But my point is, you can win. You can win with a lot of managers. You really can. But you need a player like, a Cal Raleigh's going to help. There's only so many Cal Raleighs. Dan Wilson's a better manager because of Cal Raleigh, because of Julio Rodriguez, right? And the same could be said for Mike Shildt. That's why I do think it's a good job. Is it the best job, the Padres job? I don't know. I mean, you could argue that point. Among the open jobs, it's a good job. There's a lot of teams that have, coming off 70-win seasons that are open. You have the list?
Yeah.
Twins and Rockies.
Angels, Giants, Braves, Rockies, Nationals, Twins, and Baltimore. Baltimore could be interesting just because they got so much young talent,
Atlanta's
and
always
their
interesting.
farm system is stacked.
Yeah,
still.
and Atlanta. But again, like I go back, like if you've watched the last 2 Mariners games, okay, games 5 and 1, not today. Forget about today. They're winning 7-3. Game 5. You know what happened? Well, they failed to capitalize in what? 10th, 12th, 13th. I mean, they had base runners aplenty. Didn't score. It looked like it might cost them their season. Then Jorge Polanco came through. And then guess what happened again yesterday? Jorge Polanco. One of those like every great postseason run has a Jorge Polanco. Look at Jay Cronenworth in 2022 against the Dodgers, right? That postseason was defined by Jay Cronenworth, not by Manny Machado or Fernando Tatis Jr. or Juan Soto, for example. So every great postseason run is defined by a Ramon Laureano, a Jay Cronenworth, a Jorge Polanco. It's not necessarily always going to be the stars. There are examples, Bryce Harper, when the Phillies beat the Padres back in 2022 in the NLCS. So again, I think we're going to get transfixed on the manager search because what else are we going to get transfixed with? Of course we will, and we should. And I'll be able to make the case that, hey, this type of manager will or won't work, and here's why. But it's all going to boil down to what we've said repeatedly here. We don't want to lose sight of this. That, like, don't let Manny Machado off the hook, I guess is my point. Don't let the stars off the hook. Is this more about Mike Shildt or more about Manny Machado? Is this more about, the next? Is this going to be more about whoever the next manager is going to be, or is this more about Manny Machado? At the end of the day, it's more about the Machados and the Tatises. And it's also about clutch hitting and coming through in big moments like Jorge Polanco did for the Mariners in Game 5 and like he did in Game 1 against the Blue Jays, is what I would say. So Padres are searching for a manager. No matter why or how or the timing on Mike Shildt, it is what it is, I guess. We're not going to be talking about it next June and being like, well, I think Shildt was actually forced out. It doesn't matter, but he's not here. Is that surprising? It is surprising. But I think I started the show by saying in the business of professional sports, even college sports, don't be too surprised. Don't be too surprised. We see all types of hirings and firings, trades. This is the world of sports. It's a big business. A lot is on the line. It's high risk, high reward, right? Most people that have jobs their jobs don't operate in that manner, and for good reason. Do you really want to work in accounting in a high risk, high reward job? Do you want to live and die in every tax season and be like, man, if this is a good tax season, I'm going to get triple my salary. And if this is bad, I'm out. I don't think most people want to do that in their mid 30s or their mid 40s. Some professions are more in line with that. You're a player. It's how life works. You could sign a big contract. If you don't perform, you could be out of a job at some point. You could be a good manager one year and fired the next. Look at Bob Melvin, 2022 to 2023. Look at Jace Tingler, 2020 to 2021. Look at Mike Shildt right now and ask yourself, why is he retiring right now? At the end of the day, they all have a common thread, which is the Padres didn't reach their intended goal for whatever reason. And again, you're not going to hold Manny Machado accountable, who's got 8 years left on his deal and is due still close to $300 million. And ultimately, other people are going to be held accountable. So anyway, we're going to react to it over the next 2 hours. We'd love to hear from you. There's a ton of people that have reacted on the text line. I apologize for not getting to them as of yet, but you can text us. We'll try to get to some of those texts. 70470. Start your message with the word team. Again, 70470. You can start it with the word team. Of course, you can call us as well. 877-767-4760. Again, 877-767-4760. I won't discount anyone's theories. Everyone's going to have their theory. I'm sure at some point over the next couple of weeks, they'll be like, hire David Ross, and here's why. Right? Hire Ryan Flaherty, and here's why. You can't not hire Ruben Niebla. Here's why. Fernando Tatis Sr., right? Like you're gonna Albert Pujols, right? You're gonna hear it all. But at the end of the day, whether it's David Ross or Ryan Flaherty, Ruben Niebla or AJ Ellis, all comes back to the same things we're going to be talking about. Most of next May won't be about the manager. It won't. It'll be about the team. It'll be about their play. And like to Brent's point about the openings, and to a lot of people's points about the openings, Padres have a good team. They have a front office that has performed reasonably well. You could argue whether they've performed well enough. Sure, the AJ Preller conversation. You've got an ownership that's changed, but let's be honest, they're committed. How committed? I think pretty well committed to winning and spending. So you have the building blocks in place to reach postseasons, right? It's not fall out of bed and you're in a postseason. Like, I think it's more than that. Look at this 2025 season. Like, it was a grindy element to reach the postseason, but the building blocks are in place for the next manager to reach the postseason. And then, of course, the question ultimately falls back on what are you going to do when you get there? And while the San Diego Padres might not be the Kentucky Wildcats, but when the Wildcats are expected to fall out of bed in the NCAA tournament, and once you're there, what are you going to do? And Kentucky can go 29-3, but if they lose to, who have they? Oakland in the first round. And by the way, I'll say the same thing with San Diego State. This program has won at such a high clip that there is an expectation from the fan base when it comes to men's basketball to automatically reach the NCAA tournament. I see what that entails. It is taxing and challenging and hard out of a non-power league, right? Just like it can be taxing, challenging, and hard for the Padres. They don't have the resources of the Dodgers, yet they're putting themselves in position to make the postseason. People don't want to hear about it, and I get it. It's the same thing a little bit with the Aztecs. They don't want to hear about the labor pains. They want to see the baby. They don't want to hear you're in the Mountain West. They don't want to hear that Kentucky has double or triple the revenue and more NIL resources. They don't want to hear about it. They want you in the NCAA tournament, and when you are there, they want you to win, and they want you to be on a level playing court, so to speak, when you're in the NCAA tournament. And they want to see you beat Alabama in a Sweet 16 game, which is what the Aztecs did in 2023, and beat Creighton in the Elite Eight game and play for national championships, which is something they've done. It's not easy, but it's something that they've done. And once you've done it, people want it. And I'm at a Brian Dutcher press conference earlier today. And you know what question's coming up today to Brian Dutcher 3 weeks before his team will play a regular season game? How does this team compare to the national championship team? That's the question that's being asked because the expectations are that high. Fair or unfair, that's what the questions, that's the questions that Brian Dutcher is receiving already in the middle of October. And it's the same thing a little bit here with the San Diego Padres, which is, hey, what are you going to do once you get to the postseason? We've seen you in the wild card. We've seen you in the DS. What are you going to do when you make your next championship series? You're going to make a World Series? Because that's what the expectation is right now from the fan base. We'll get to the wrap on the other side. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBS Sports, will join us coming up at 4:30. If you missed Kevin Acee, you'll hear that conversation that we had with our Padres insider coming up at 5 p.m. Plus great giveaways for you as well. This is John and Jim. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Will Brinson on this weekend in the NFL. Plus Monday Night Football. He'll join us as he does weekly, Mondays at 4:30. He'll join us coming up in about 12 minutes. Kevin Acee at 5 p.m. Mike Shildt has retired. I'll be honest, this day's been so crazy that from, dealing with everything you deal with school drop off. And then I was over at San Diego State for like 2 hours and then racing over here. Like the full letter from Mike Shildt. Did he say, do you have access to that real quick? The letter from Mike Shildt, right? Did he say he was retiring from the Padres or retiring? Also, like as I do the show live, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said in that letter. I'm going to try to pull it up real quick. Because again, that's kind of a key point in here. Like, are you retiring from the Padres or are you retiring in general? Where is this letter? Can someone put that in the chat if you're watching right now on YouTube? I thought there was a letter that for whatever reason right now I can't. Oh, here it is. Letter from Mike Shildt. It is with a heavy but full heart that I am announcing my retirement from managing the San Diego Padres. So you know what I mean? Sometimes we read a headline like Mike Shildt retires. Well, no, he retired from managing the San Diego Padres. There's a distinction there. It's like what we said earlier, what Bob Nightingale wrote in the USA Today, today. When Bob Nightingale published, Shildt did not respond when asked if the two sides reached a financial settlement or whether he was walking away from his salary. Like Mike Shildt didn't retire today as a 57-year-old. He walked away from managing the San Diego Padres. So say whatever you want, but he didn't retire today. He retired from managing the San Diego Padres. There is a difference. There is a difference. All right, Will Brinson coming up at 4:30. Right now, let's get to this.
It's time for the wrap. Presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
Will the Aztecs beat UCLA in Friday's exhibition game at Viejas Arena?
All right, so this is cool. Aztecs basketball back. Pair of exhibition games beginning Friday against UCLA at Viejas. By the way, I want to say they just put single game tickets for that up right now. So if you're an Aztec fan or a basketball fan or you want to see San Diego State, UCLA Friday night at Viejas Arena, they now have single game tickets for that game available. So go to goaztecs.com or find the Aztecs men's basketball on social media accounts. But I think it's going to be a very good game. The thing with exhibitions, though, is you don't necessarily know how the two teams will treat it. As in, are you going to effort to get everyone into the game, or are you going to do everything in your power to try to win the game? I think both teams might look at it differently. And I don't necessarily know how San Diego State's going to treat it. They're dealing a little bit with some bumps and bruises. I think Miles Bird's been out with an ab strain that Dutch talked about today. Magoon Guat's not going to play, for example. He's coming off that knee. So he's still maybe a couple of weeks or a few weeks away. So I don't think the Aztecs will be at 100%, but they're going to want to win the game. They're playing at home. They're playing a high level of competition. UCLA's preseason top 25. Aztecs are going to have a loaded schedule early, playing teams like Michigan and Oregon and Arizona. So they're going to want to win the game. And you know how the Aztecs play at Viejas. They win over 90% of the time. So, yeah, I think San Diego State will find a way to beat UCLA Friday at Viejas. Next question.
How would you grade Shilt's tenure in San Diego?
Yeah, from a sheer letter grade, Brent, I would say firm B. It's not C. It was better than average. It's not an A because it wasn't excellent. But I think it was good. Was it good enough? Maybe not. Was it good? Sometimes you say something's good though. I like how was McDonald's? Good. Was it great? Like it was good. Was it bad? No, it wasn't bad. It was good. So like that's how I would look at it. Like it was good. I wouldn't call it great, and I wouldn't call it bad. So I would say firm B. It's good, but it's not great.
A little better than okay.
Better than okay, absolutely. Next question.
Are the Aztecs a Mountain West favorite after their 5-1 start?
So talking Aztecs football, a blowout win in Reno over Nevada. They led 44-0 on the road. They won. By the way, I think the Reno Gazette wrote that the Aztecs held on for a 44-10 win. No, they didn't hold on to anything. Okay, they led 44-0. They didn't hold on to anything.
Dude, they were up 14-0 before CBS Sports even switched over from the previous game.
Yeah, exactly. So are they the favorite? I think they're certainly a favorite in the Mountain West, and it will not come easy in the second half of the year. Starting not this Saturday, but next Saturday in Fresno. That's never easy. Rivals. Fresno's coming off a terrible loss at Colorado State. And I say terrible because they lost by 28 points to a team that had not played great. So anything can happen, as we know. But it starts at the Fresno road game, and you have Boise at home, and you have to go to Hawaii, and you have to go to New Mexico. And they've been a bit of a surprise here in 2025. They're certainly a favorite. And I'm sure if you ask Sean Lewis, and he spoke with the media earlier today, they have a lot of work to do. If they can win in Fresno, you can start putting the pieces together on how to get to a Mountain West championship game. But a lot of it's contingent on winning in Fresno a week from Saturday. Next question.
Who should the Padres hire as their next manager?
No idea. Yeah, I really don't. I could be convinced of the Ruben Niebla idea, although I do think it's unconventional. There's not a zillion examples of pitching coaches becoming managers. There are examples, just not a zillion of them. Just because you're a great pitching coach does not mean you're a great manager. Doesn't mean you're not a great manager. If he wants to manage, he certainly should be interviewed for the job. So that's a name, obviously, to keep an eye on. I'm sure they have some internal candidates. I bet they'll have external interviews as well. But I think it's too early to really know. Maybe we have more of a feel, even though A.J. Preller says nothing, when A.J. Preller speaks with the media tomorrow. As in, I don't think Preller will really give you much thinking into his decisions coming up. Like, is he going to be saying tomorrow, hey, we want to hire someone with major league managerial experience previously? He probably won't be saying anything, because he might tell you that they're going to interview a Ruben Niebla, or they'll cast a wide net, or they're going to speak with a couple of people over the course of a couple of weeks. I just don't think he's going to get into specifics.
No, and baseball is different than other sports, to where, like, if this was college football, they'd be like, oh, well, we're waiting around because we're going to interview one of these four coaches of the, final four teams that are left, still playing right now. But in baseball, just because Seattle had a great year, the Rockies aren't just going to all of a sudden throw Dan Wilson all this money to come be a coach like they do in like football and other things like that. So
absolutely.
It's one of those things where it's who's out there that's available, and who's out there that's available that isn't the same old, that, we got the same, cast of characters out there that they just kind of been floating around and, going from team to team, to where do you want to take somebody from that old cast of characters, or you want to, find somebody new?
Yeah. Mike Shildt wasn't a sexy hire, but it was a hire that worked. Bob Melvin was a sexy hire at the time, and it worked partially. Again, you don't want to win the press conference. You want to win. All right, Will Brinson on the other side, senior NFL writer, CBS Sports, getting us ready for tonight. Monday Night Football, plus looking back at this weekend in the NFL, right here on John and Jim.
This report is sponsored by Macy's Backstage. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his deal, said, quote, "The grind of the baseball season has taken a severe toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally." Game 2 of the ALCS between the Mariners and the Blue Jays is underway. And we just got another two-run homer by Josh Naylor has extended the Seattle lead to 9-3 in the top of the 7th inning. Monday Night Football, we got a tie game here in our first game of 2 of the Monday Night Football doubleheader. The Bills and the Falcons are tied at 7 apiece with about 8 minutes to go in the first quarter. Game 1 of the NLCS between the Brewers and Dodgers in Milwaukee is set for about 45 minutes from now. It's going to be Blake Snell going for the Dodgers and Aaron Ashby going for the Brewers. And in other NFL news, the Titans fired head coach Brian Callahan this morning. He had a record of 4-19 as Titans head coach, and former Chargers head coach Mike McCoy is the new interim head coach. Macy's Backstage is a whole department inside your Macy's store where you can find the latest fall looks, all for under $30, with new arrivals every day. You never know what amazing deals you'll find. Don't wait. Find a location at macysbackstage.com.
All right, Will Brinson, CBS Sports, will join us momentarily. There is a Monday Night Football game underway and another one coming up. I'll never get used to the multiple Monday night games same night. Bills and Falcons tied. Titans fire their head coach today. Mike McCoy has been named the interim head coach, as Brent's been telling you, but Brian Callahan is out in year 2. Always our pleasure to connect with Will Brinson, CBS Sports, back with us right now on John and Jim. So, yeah, I don't blame you for watching. So Will's watching. It's so weird, Will. I want to get into this Titan situation that played out earlier with Brian Callahan. It'll never be normal to me that there are 2 Monday Night Football games on one day. It got quasi-normal that they did it like week 1 for a while. But now it's like, hey, we're in the middle of the season. Let's play 2 games at the same time on Monday night. Like, what's the reasoning for that? I just don't like that.
I'm not entirely sure. I think it revolves around the ESPN. ESPN redid their contract a few years ago, and and they paid a lot to be able to use the all 22 and the highlights at like 24/7 on the on every show they could. But yeah, I think it's like they had to figure out a way to get more games in under the current schedule, and the only way was to do the Monday Night Football doubleheader. I mean, I kind of enjoy having 2 games. Right. I go back and forth. I like having 2 games. I'm glad there's not a 10 o'clock kick. There is a ton of overlap. Like as soon as we get done talking, the other game is getting close to kicking off. But yeah, I mean, because it's like a 4:15 kick on the West Coast. It's pretty crazy early. Yeah, I mean, my thing is I don't like when they come out of the gates, do it. I think week 2. And then week 3 and then stop. And then they circle back in week 6. They're like, hey, just kidding. We're doing it 2 more weeks because there's 2 more next week too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I look at tonight's games, and again, it was the Falcons scored first, right? And the Bills have tied it up. And Bears Commanders obviously is a very intriguing game tonight in DC. I want to get to both of these games, but I also want to get to the situation playing out with the Titans. Was this surprising, the timing on today's firing?
Not really. I mean, they looked lifeless. You've heard Jeffrey Simmons has talked about how, they've been like I think he said after last week's game, he's like, we had a terrible week of practice. And then yesterday or today, maybe, or after the game yesterday, he said, we had our worst week of practice yet. So the practice has been terrible. The Titans have been getting blown out. The Raiders aren't a great football team and just manhandled them. And I think now that's 4 straight coaches who have been fired in their first year with the number 1 overall draft pick, dating back to even Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
So it's like when a quarterback's been taken number 1 overall, 4 straight guys have been fired in their first year. Urban Meyer, obviously, for different reasons. But, you look at it and you see the quarterbacks taken, the talent level, and the performance of the team. And then maybe most importantly, the development, right, with Cam Ward, where you're just not seeing it from him. so far, taking a ton of sacks. The running game under Brian Callahan, of course, as expected, Bill Callahan is leaving the Titans. Like, you fire my son, I'm leaving as well. That running game didn't work out. And there's been, in almost every week this season, the Titans have had a coaching situation with Callahan where he made some sort of massive tactical blunder, whether it was failing to challenge an obvious opportunity on a catch, or trying to kick a 57-yard field goal, not being prepared, taking a delay of game, kicking a 62-yarder that gets blocked. It's just been one calamity after the other with the Titans. And when so I'm not shocked by it, but it is pretty early, in the season to can a guy when you give him a number one pick. I do tend to think I agree with it, though. And you never want to lose their job.
Right.
But man, I mean, Callahan has done a poor job, and he's supposed to come over and be a great offensive mind. It hasn't worked out.
Will Brinson with us right now on John and Jim, talking about this weekend in the NFL, looking ahead to tonight as well. What did you make? I saw the NFL suspended Brian Branch. I mean, what other option did they have? That was so egregious last night. I know he's had other fines here over recent history as well. What was your reaction to the way that played out yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, this is a guy that is he's a hard hitting,
right,
aggressive, player, right? But like, you can't do what you did against, and you just can't punch people. And the NFL has been like hard line fast about that. If you're throwing, it's also, by the way, stupid to throw your fist anywhere near a helmet, right?
Exactly.
Like you're literally asking for it, but to do it at the end of the game too, the NFL, you see every league is adamant about, and this dates back to the Ron Artest, the Malice of the Palace. It's like the NFL and every professional league does not want the commentary, the discussion around teams to be about things that are outside the realm, that are unsportsmanlike. Mm-hmm. And so if you act in that manner, the NFL is going to be aggressive in their pursuit, because like at the end of the day, is there anybody who's like, how dare you suspend Brian Branch?
Right.
This is an injustice against a player in this team. No, nobody's going to say that. And everyone's going to be like, well, maybe don't do, like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes is the best line here, I think, with Branch.
No, I think it's well said. So looking at the NFC, we know yesterday Niners go to Tampa, they lose. The Bucs are 5-1. In terms of long-term prospects in 2025, chances to make a run this postseason, are you higher on the Bucs or the Niners in the postseason in 2025?
I mean, in the postseason, that's a good question, because the problem with the Buccaneers right now is that, Emeka Egbuka is now hurt. Chris Godwin is hurt. Mike Evans is hurt. Are they going to get these receivers back? The fact that they're winning like this, to me, is the ultimate testament to Baker Mayfield and the way he's played so far this season. I mean, I think 6 weeks in, and granted, Josh Allen's playing right now, and he could do some more superhuman stuff that makes this null and void, I guess. But Baker Mayfield is, at least, if he's not one, then he's two in terms of the MVP rankings. They have been down. I think it's something, the stats about when they've won, how much time is left, but they've been down with like 2 or 3 minutes left in almost every game. Obviously, they beat the Niners and weren't sweating it. But I mean, he's had these Heisman moments, whether it's the third down yesterday and then the bomb, down the field to Tez Johnson, the rookie. He's been fantastic. And the one thing I would say, though, with the Niners is they are holding it together. Like, if the Bucs are using duct tape, the Niners are using Scotch tape. Mm-hmm. I mean, the injuries to them are just unbelievable. And the fact that they've been able to hold it together, I do think if you got to the postseason with a slightly depleted Niners roster, I'd give them the edge over the Buccaneers, just because I think Kyle Shanahan can scheme some stuff up. You got Christian McCaffrey. You expect to get Brandon Ayuk back at some point. Jawan Jennings is playing like 5 broken ribs, which is insane. A slight edge to the Niners, but I think it's pretty close. it's an NFC that's pretty wide open at this point. No one's really established themselves as a, kind of dominant team. But I would lean slightly, I think, to the Niners, although it really just depends on how these injuries shake out for both those teams.
Speaking of the NFC and like nobody necessarily establishing themselves, could one of these teams tonight, the Commanders or the Bears, like get into that conversation tonight with a win in terms of being an upper echelon team in the NFC?
I think the Commanders could.
Yeah.
If the Bears, I mean, look, if the Bears came out and were suddenly good on defense after the bye, or we saw some stuff from Caleb Williams, after having, and Ben Johnson having this week off to sort of, work on things. Like if they came out and just lit up the Commanders defense, maybe you could make that case. But I think the Commanders have a more appealing possibility because they're dealing with it. I mean, everybody's dealing with injuries, but Terry McLaurin still out. Debo banged up, but likely to play. Jaden Daniels is just so special, and we saw them in the NFC Championship game last year. Then, they go and play the Chargers last week. They get down, I think, 17-0, and then just rip off, maybe it's 10-0, whatever it was. They ripped off like 27 unanswered points and were hard-hitting, running the ball right down the Chargers' throats, basically doing to Jim Harbaugh exactly what he wants to do to everybody else. And so I think the Commanders in, a conference where you have the Lions who have played really well, but then lose to the Chiefs. You have the Packers who have been really great at points, and then at some points, the Buccaneers are pulling off these heroics. I think the Commanders could absolutely put themselves. And the Eagles, of course, they win, but then they don't. Nobody really knows of the Eagles. I think the Commanders are a team that, as long as they have Jaden Daniels healthy and on the field, and then they find ways to win when he's gone. Yeah, you could definitely talk me into the Commanders with an elite performance tonight being one of those teams that could make some noise in that division.
Final one for me on yesterday's Chargers win in Miami. Were you more impressed with the Chargers or more unimpressed with the Dolphins?
I think really impressed with what Justin. I mean, that play.
Yeah,
right?
that play was great. That was a great play. Yeah. I
mean, just ridiculous. Yeah. Like Justin Herbert just shouldn't have been able
shake off a defender.
Right. And like he rolls into the defender, shakes him off, and then finds Ladd. And then the move by Ladd was just incredible. So I think more impressed with the Chargers. The Dolphins are just unimpressive in the first place. So, that defense is bad. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I would lean more impressed with the Chargers who, after that hot start, a little bit of a snide, start to, you find a way to win in a game that you're supposed to win. And now all of a sudden you can, just got to kind of just hold things down until you maybe get Joe Alt back, get Amari Hampton back, and then you're Khalil Mack, and you're both sides of the ball, so you find that identity that we think they're supposed to have.
We'll always appreciate you taking time for us. Enjoy these Monday Night Football games, the two games going on tonight, and we'll do it again next Monday. Appreciate you hopping on, man.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you guys this week.
All right, great stuff from Will Brinson, senior NFL writer for CBS Sports. Back to the Padres on the other side. They make the managerial change. Mike Shildt retiring from his stint as manager of the Padres. Plus, if you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, you'll hear it coming up at 5 p.m. Also coming up next, we'll give away a 4-pack of tickets to Howl O Scream at SeaWorld San Diego here on John and Jim. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760 will give away Hal O Scream tickets, a 4-pack coming up in 7 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll give those away in 7 minutes. San Diego Sports 760 does congratulate our $5,000 winners and iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher, powered by Donors Choose. Still time to nominate a public school teacher making a difference, and maybe they'll be one of our next winners of $5,000 to make over their classroom. Help us say thank you to the educators shaping our future. Nominate your favorite teacher now at iHeartRadio.com/teachers. If you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, you're going to find it insightful, and you're going to hear it coming up at 5 p.m. So Kevin joined us. He was one of the initial reporters to break the news that Mike Shildt was retiring. And to be completely frank, it was surprising. Again, for me, and maybe it's because, again, I've kind of covered sports for a living, and I understand that it's a business. Like, nothing is overly surprising. There's certain things that, here, I'll give you something that's shocking to me that goes well beyond Mike Shildt no longer being manager. Like, what was shocking to me in real time is when Fernando Tatis Jr. tested positive for steroids. That to me was shocking because it was so out of left field. It was so out of left field. Like, yeah, it's possible, but nobody sits there like, oh, I wonder when this player is going to test positive and be popped for PEDs. Like that's not something you sit around waiting for. It's a possibility, but you don't sit around waiting for it. Changes in managers when the average managerial stint in the major leagues is 2.5 years. I mean, again, it's not shocking. I think if we found out today that AJ Preller wasn't being retained, you wouldn't say it was shocking. You'd say maybe it was surprising. There's been more chatter about Preller's future than Shilt's future because Shildt was under contract through 2027. Preller, as far as we know, is currently only under contract through 2026. But to me, it doesn't come as some shock. It does come as a surprise. I think you always have to ask when you hear something like that, you always have to do the deeper dive. You cannot take it on its face. I really don't think you can. And there's obviously way more there. Not to say that Mike Shildt didn't make the decision. I think he fully made the decision, but was he motivated to make the decision? What I mean by that were there financial reasons to make that decision? So maybe we'll get some of those details tomorrow when AJ Preller speaks, and he's going to speak, I believe, tomorrow at 10 a.m. And John and Jim will be on the air tomorrow. And by John and Jim, I mean Jonathan Rifkin will be here tomorrow, and then Jim will be back here on Wednesday. But we'll get some more information. I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it, truthfully. And I stand by what I said to start the show, which is like, Mike Shildt's going to work again in baseball. He didn't retire. He retired from the San Diego Padres, which is what he actually wrote today in his letter to the UT. So he didn't retire. He retired from the San Diego Padres. And then you have to ask yourself, why did he retire from the San Diego Padres with 2 years left on his deal? And if it's solely because, well, it's taken a toll, I respect that. Like, I get it. That I completely respect it. But it's taken a toll, but it's October. It's taken a toll on everyone in October. How are you going to feel after the holidays? Are you going to be rejuvenated in January, in February? So I fully expect him to be back at his feet in baseball. We heard from Jake Peavy earlier. We heard from Jesse Rogers. There was a quote from Ken Rosenthal. I think everyone is surprised. And I think if you think just on its face, yeah, he retired. Baseball lifer, 57 years old. He just got up and said, you know what? I'm not going to do it anymore. I think everyone is kind of like questioning that. And I think you should be questioning that, truthfully.
Well, it'd be one thing if, like, the last couple weeks of the season or in the last series, with his, post-game pressers, he's just kind of coming out sounding like, he's Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh or something, where I sound super depressed, where it's just like, I don't sound like the usual nickname giving Shilty. But there was none of that. He still came out and, acted just like he would normally, which is why this is kind of a surprise, because there wasn't anything like leading up to it to be like, oh yeah, I that makes sense. We saw this one coming. We were all kind of throwing around for the last couple of weeks about, well, maybe AJ, but nobody was like, oh yeah, Shilt's gone. Everyone's just like, no, he's safe. It's more like, if any is going to go, it's probably going to be AJ.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think that, at the end of the day, you look at the end result of a season and you say, where could we improve? The first area I'm looking isn't, hey, we could really improve at manager. Like, to me, it's probably on margins, right? You're on the margins. Could you do better than Mike Shildt? I'm sure there's a world where you could. Could you do worse than Mike Shildt? I firmly believe you could. Could you do similar? Yes. So, like, my first order of business wouldn't be change the manager. But then again, and it's a factual statement, at the end of 2024 and 2025, it was a severe disappointment, right? It wasn't just every team loses in the postseason but one, Jim fact. But not all teams lose in the same fashion. Like, for example, if you're in a best of 7 series and lose 4-1, like they did in 2022, now we put a lot of that on Melvin with his bullpen usage in games 4 and 5. And it was a severe disappointment, but you get the point. Like, if the Mariners sweep the Blue Jays here, like, Blue Jays fans after game 3 aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, what went wrong in game 4? Like, the writing's on the wall. The way 2024 ended was so unexpected, from 2-1 up to out 2 games later. And then this year in game 3, everyone had the utmost confidence heading into that game. It's not going to be like 2024. The Cubs are not the Dodgers, right? They're going to break through here. This is our opportunity, so to speak. I'm not saying people said the Padres are winning the World Series, but I do believe Padres fans were confident, and I think the organization was confident in their chances of winning that game 3, and they didn't. And they really laid an egg again. Now, not a true goose egg with 0 runs, because Jackson Merrill hit a solo home run, and they did have a chance there in the 9th inning, no doubt about it. We could talk about the umpiring like we did. At the end of the day, the way they went out was so disappointing in 2024 and 2025. And guess what? The manager was Mike Shildt. Again, I'm not putting it on him, but like, it's a factual statement. So you do the autopsy on the season. And again, could they do worse than Mike Shildt? Yes. But again, maybe there's a risk reward element to it. They think that they can put themselves in a better position next postseason with a different manager. And again, I'm speculating. They haven't commented on it publicly. AJ Preller will talk at 5 p.m. I'm not saying he was forced out, but I am saying, is there a world where there was a mutual agreement that they'd be better off with what has happened here today? All right, call right now if you want a free 4-pack of tickets to Howl Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. A 4-pack of tickets, free. Caller 7, you're going. 877-767-4760. A free 4-pack of tickets, okay? To Howl Scream. Call right now. 877-767-4760. This year, new horrors awaken. 5 haunted houses, 8 terrifying scare zones, hidden speakeasies, and the Shrills of Coasters After Dark. Select nights now through November 1st. Get tickets now at SeaWorld.com/San Diego. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, on today's news. Mike Shildt out as Padres manager. That's next on John and Jim.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt, who still had 2 years remaining on his contract, said that the grind of the baseball season had taken a severe toll on him mentally, physically, and emotionally. Game 2 of the ALCS between the Mariners and the Blue Jays is underway right now in the top of the 8th. The Mariners are all over Toronto 10-3. In Game 1 of the NLCS is about to get underway here in about 10 minutes. The Dodgers are going to throw Blake Snell on the mound, and it's going to be Aaron Ashby going for Milwaukee. In NFL news, we have a doubleheader tonight on Monday Night Football. Right now, about 14 minutes left in the second quarter. The Falcons lead the Bills 14-7. And in about 10 or 15 minutes, the second game of the doubleheader is going to be on when the Bears take on the Commanders. Progressive Insurance says if you're a renter, make sure you're protected. Renters insurance includes options that cover stolen property, personal injury, and living expenses if your place is damaged. Get a quote for renters insurance at progressive.com.
Shildt walks away.
What I saw him do is take a team that felt like they were sort of afloat and galvanize them.
Padres manager Mike Shildt retires with 2 years left on his deal, saying the grind of the season took a toll on him. The Aztecs.
Dangerous throw intercepted. Intercepted by Chris Johnson. Blockers out in front. Down the sideline and in for the touchdown.
A road win up in Reno and bye week to get ready for Fresno State. Now live from the studios of San Diego Sports 760, it's John and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? Final hour of John and Jim reacting to the news that Mike Shildt is out. He is retired as manager of the Padres. We had Kevin Acee on to discuss his reporting. He was the first to report on the news that Mike Shildt was out. This starts with just the general idea of Shildt, quote unquote, retiring here to begin October.
Listen, I believe it's absolutely true that Mike, needed to step away, that Mike made the decision for his health, ultimately, that's what needed to happen. We may never know everything that went into this. I mean, we just might not. I mean, because it is so extraordinary that a man would walk away from at least $4 million and perhaps, up to $6 million. We don't know what Mike was owed. And we also don't know if he really walked away from all of it. I mean, there's some unknowns, but I can tell you based on, reporting, and I've been reporting on this story for longer than, you might think, and conversation with Mike yesterday, he is worn out. He needed a break. He was tired. He's worried about his health. So that is what I believe that is to be totally true. What other stuff there? I guess we'll find out, or just as likely we won't find out if there was any other aspects that made it so that now was the time that Mike is gone.
Do you believe when he says, though, he's retired, and like you said, maybe we'll find out if there's been some type of terms with the organization? Did he really walk away from 2-year salary, or did they come to terms? Has he actually retired a baseball lifer at 57? I get it. At the end of a long season, I'm sure it is taxing. These are tough jobs. But a 57-year-old man, hopefully in good health, that's been a baseball lifer, has he worked his final day in professional baseball?
No. I mean, come on. We know what retired means in a lot of these instances, and I can't imagine that Mike is done with baseball. Now, who knows what that is? I mean, is it player development? Is it college? Is it some sort of ministry where some FCA thing? I honestly don't know what it is. I do know that once you've had one of these 30 jobs, you want it, and it was a big deal for him to walk away. But he is a baseball lifer. There is nothing else. And to that end, I wish him well, that maybe there can be some other, who am I to say that someone should have a more well-rounded life? That's not what I'm saying. But that there is something else out there for Mike Shildt, because eventually baseball does end for anybody. And that means it ends at midnight, or it ends at some point in your life. And I would love to take Mike Shildt at face value that whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever, his business, that Mike does work on his health, because he assured that he is in good health, as in there is no illness or anything, but that he is in bad health, in that, you've been there. You got 2 gigs going, at least, that I know of. You've been there, those busy times of sleep, wake up, eat, go to work, sleep, wake up, eat, go to work, 6 over and over. Mike Shildt did that for 8 months of the year, and a manager's job is 12 months, but that's what Mike Shildt did. And he's not happy with where he's at.
That's fair. Kevin Acey's our Padres insider. He's with us right now on John and Jim. I'm kind of asking for your opinion here. What's a harder part of managing the Padres, or even the role that Mike Shildt was in the last 2 years? Is it working with the front office led by AJ Preller, or is it the clubhouse dynamics of this specific team with the high-priced players, Manny Machado, not just Machado, but others? Is it the clubhouse dynamic or the front office dynamic?
That's a tricky question, because here's where I will be very careful every time I answer a question. Is the narrative regarding AJ Preller is going to taint anybody who hears my answer. So I want to make sure that I'm letting you know that a lot of the narrative is garbage or is off base. And look, I spent a lot of time in my life in the last few years, and time today, talking with people who've worked with AJ Preller and people who've worked with Mike Shildt. And these people who worked with AJ Preller, talk about that the narrative is false. He's not he doesn't tell his managers what to do. That managers of the Padres have more autonomy than most. Is it difficult to work with him if you're in the manager's chair? Yeah, you know what? I imagine it is. I imagine it is. And I base that on my knowledge of what it's like to some extent, but also I imagine that it's difficult to work with a lot of very successful people and high-powered people and highly driven people. So I just want to make sure that's out there. But I want to say also, that's probably the more difficult, demanding thing. But the clubhouse thing is real too. And maybe a new voice. Mike had the clubhouse. They won 183 games over the last 2 years. But maybe there is somebody that can work with and get more out of certain people.
He had this veteran coaching staff, right, that was retained from 2024 to 2025. As in, I guess my question is, would this be a surprise to his coaching staff that this decision was made right now, or not?
Depends on which ones you asked. And veteran kind of,
right,
but not really. A lot of player development guys, a lot of guys who come up from the minors. And my understanding is there's some really good coaches on that staff, but not super vet guys.
Gotcha.
Some were caught by surprise today, and actually all were caught by surprise to some extent today. Yes. But Mike is also, and I would take him at face value here, and they're going to betray a lot of stuff here. But I think that you can believe Mike when he said that he was thinking about this during the season. I also think you can believe, and look, I was around it, and I've talked to other people who were around it. It's not like you got less out of Mike Shildt once he started thinking about this. He was all in. But this is whatever prompted it to happen now. I 100% believe this is something Mike Shildt was thinking about in September and perhaps earlier.
Kevin Acey is our Padres insider. So just taking it back to the Padres and the impact on the team and the clubhouse and where they go from here. You know better than I do, but Manny Machado's had, 4 managers in 7 seasons. Same thing with Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm talking specifically in San Diego. His next manager will be his 5th. I don't know if it's the end-all, be-all or not, but what's the impact here? What impact is this going to have on the team? Another managerial, decision to be made by AJ Preller in this front office.
Yeah, I don't think it should be discounted, but I think it can be overestimated. I think we've talked before about these players by necessity are the most self-centered people I've ever known in my life. Not just Padres players, I'm talking baseball players, and I'm talking professional athletes. And they're going to go play. Now, here's what you're looking for in a manager is the guy who's going to get that extra 10% out of them, right? That's going to make them the best players they can be, either through baseball fundamentals, but also, motivation over 6 months plus then what's turned into a pretty important month for the Padres, October. And so, like I said, yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed, man. They got to stop this. I mean, this is ridiculous. And sorry, a little bit of that's from the beat writer who's covered 183 wins and 2 playoff appearances, and now it's covering another managerial search. So I'm kind of tired of it. But to answer your question, John, yeah, that needs to be addressed, and I think it is somewhat significant. But I'm going to tell you that it's not going to affect Manny Machado's slugging percentage at all next year.
No, it's fair. I'm just I'm talking myself in circles as I react to some of what you're saying, and I'm just thinking about it. Like, I think back to Mike Shildt when he left St. Louis. It was philosophical differences. We're hearing none of that, to your point, none of the reporting, none of the commentary coming out from the statements from the Padres or the letter that the UT published from Mike Shildt. But with all that being said, philosophically, will the Padres continue down this path? As in, will it be an internal hire or an external hire? I ask it specifically about some of the baseball strategy that Mike Shildt implemented, specifically in the second half of 2025. Is that who the Padres want to be? $1 billion invested in their lineup? Do they want to get someone on, move him over, and then get him in? Or do you expect that philosophy or philosophically to change?
Well, I think, and I'll just go, some of this is what I'm saying is based on things I talk to people in the organization about, and then I'm extrapolating a little bit and just kind of giving you my thoughts here.
Yeah.
I think Mike Shildt, to some extent, reacted to the team he had.
Right.
So that is then, does the philosophy, the hitting philosophy, hey, Fernando Tatis Jr., left field, Petco Park, pretty good place, hit some bombs. You know, do we need to work more on, hey, Tatis pulls, you know, like the hitting philosophy for certain guys, it may be team wide, could then change how the manager uses the manufacturing of runs, the small ball and all that stuff. I want to defend Mike Shildt on that to some extent. And the players that were given the freedom by Mike Shildt to do some things that Mike Shildt didn't always agree with and maybe should have made sure didn't happen. I don't know. But like, he was also aware of who his team was. And we're all talking about the 2-run homer that could have been hit, but I'm going to sit here and say it probably wasn't going to get hit. So like, I think Mike did a really good job in that way. But your point is absolutely valid. They are looking at their philosophy offensively.
This is not 100% being like, I'm not actually asking this question, but I'm kind of asking this question. Does Manny get a say in this? In the hire? Is he always, right?
Always, but not like, oh, we can't do this or we're gonna do this. I would even say it's not gonna be we're gonna do this because of Manny. But look, he has a say in almost everything, at least like, hey, let's hear what Manny has to say, right? Let's hear what Bogey has to say, right? I don't mean to use all nicknames here, but, that's how they would talk. Let's hear what Joe has to say, right? Like, and then also, hey, let's consider the personality of our team as we are deciding who to be the manager.
Kevin, do you believe, I think this has been reported maybe by yourself, and you have the inner workings better than I do. Does Ruben Niebla, he wants to manage in the big leagues. Is that correct? And he would be interviewed in this scenario?
Yeah. I believe there's 100%. I believe it's close to 100% that he'll be interviewed. I do not have any clarity right now onto, who those candidates really are. There's a few that you could safely assume, would be interested and that they would interview. And without a doubt, like, it would be insulting to not interview Ruben and to maybe find out things that you don't know already about his ability to manage. He's highly thought of, like really highly thought of. There is not another coach. There's no one besides Mike Shildt that talks to AJ Preller and Josh Stein and other people in the front office more than Ruben Niebla does because of his, how much they respect him, but also he's the pitching coach handling the very important part, 13 players. So yes, without a doubt, it's highly intriguing.
Does it, just a final question or two, do you feel as if, let's say it was filled with Niebla, do you fill a hole by creating another? As in, they already have a very good pitching coach. He's not going to be the manager.
They have a very good bullpen coach. They have a very good bullpen coach who I would think in the coming days, weeks, you'll hear that Ben Fritz is interviewing or has been, the people have asked permission to interview Ben Fritz for their pitching coach jobs, right? So, because with managerial openings come pitching coach openings in a lot of cases. And, my understanding, talking to a couple of people today, is that's the case. So, okay, if that's the case, then it also makes sense that Ben Fritz could just be elevated and you have your manager, you have your same group, basically.
Last one, because you're going to see it every 2 seconds on social media. What about Bruce Bochy?
Nah, I mean, Bruce and the Padres have both kind of said, I've talked to Bruce Bochy since the middle of the season. So I can't say right now, but I'm saying in the past, both times that they've sort of courted or danced or flirted or whatever. And it hasn't been, a fit. And I just don't know that either side would think it is now. I can certainly see the merits, but how long is Bruce Bochy going to manage? What do we really know about that? And, is it more than 2 years? Is it more than 3? Gosh, could you hire someone now and have some, at least have some thought that you're going to keep them for more than 2 years?
It's like deja vu all over again. I think that was the initial plan with Bob Melvin. I think it was probably the plan with Mike Shildt heading into 2025 or coming out of it, but it's a fair point. When is the next 3-year manager for the Padres? It's been since now Andy Green. To have a manager last more than 2 years, which is somewhat incredible. Kevin, great reporting. We appreciate you.
Should we just give him some kudos? I mean, Andy Green, twice as long as anybody else.
I know. Honestly, that is kind of ridiculous when you look back on it. He was here 4 years.
And the expectations were pretty out of whack, and everyone knows I'm a fan of Andy Green's. I thought, and I also tend to defend people. I push back on narratives, but Andy Green deserved better than he got from San Diego. And I think it's kind of funny that he's the guy who lasted 4 years.
Okay, but to put a bow on it, because I was wrapping up with you, but now you've led me down another path.
Yeah, sorry.
To put a bow on it, yes, he's retired, to your point, and that's fair, but does any of this stem back to the lack of postseason successes with the expectations being higher? You don't score the last 2 games against LA. I'm not putting it on Mike Shildt. There's so much more in it. You score 5 runs against the Cubs. Again, it's not his fault they lost game 3. But failing to get what the organization has publicly stated they wanted to get, right? Bring a World Series championship to the city of San Diego. Does this have anything to do with falling short when it matters most?
I don't believe that the retirement of Mike Shildt has anything to do with that at all. I don't. No, if that was going to be put somewhere, and I'm not saying that'd be fairly at all, then, probably be put on AJ Preller, right? I mean, what did Mike Shildt do? Certainly batting his, lefty 7, 8, 9 is not cause for firing. But I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm honestly trying to ponder this as you say it. And I will just say flat out that my reporting says no, but also, I just don't even see where it could make sense. But yeah.
Kevin, appreciate you doing it. Thanks for allowing me to go all over the place over the last 15 minutes with you. And hope all is well. Take a day or 2 for yourself until there's a manager hired. All right. That was Kevin Acee, our Padres insider earlier. We can react to it. Plus, we have another giveaway for you. Plus, we are watching Monday Night Football's games and what's going on right now in the baseball postseason with the NLCS underway. We're here until 6. Brent's back page is ahead. Mike Shildt has retired as manager of the Padres. Don't go anywhere. John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Tomorrow, J Riff, Jonathan Rifkin, in for, well, us. J Riff will be here tomorrow. Jim's traveling. I'm traveling. Jim will be back Wednesday. So be with us. AJ Preller speaks with the media tomorrow. If you're expecting now I get it. It's not, you're not getting that. It all makes sense. I have the clarity I was seeking. This is the right.
We're not going to get at some sort of usual suspects reveal where it's just oh my God, all is clear.
It's
now.
all right. If you're looking for it all to be pulled together in one movie scene, right? What was it? I'm going to do a movie reference. I've done this before. The Sixth Sense, when it's put together and you're really? I don't think that happens tomorrow.
I don't either.
I think what you're going to hear is more of the same. You saw Mike Shilt's letter. I think AJ Preller will go down that path. Hey, Mike was a really good manager for us. We respect his decision to retire. We wish he was still here. And we will begin the process of hiring the next manager of the San Diego Padres. But I don't think he's going to tell you, I talked to Bruce Bochy this afternoon. In fact, I'm so glad you asked. You're not going to get real clarity. I think you might get some questions about their offseason plans, but again, not real clarity. Payrolls, free agent plans, none of that comes from AJ Preller. He is very cautious. He's the master of saying nothing with saying a lot. He'll talk and, he'll sound the part. He's not going to not answer. He's not a yes or no guy. You'll get 60, 90 seconds or more on the questions that are asked. He'll be very respectful. It's not going to be confrontational. None of that. But it's a cat and mouse game. It's a game at the end of the day. If you're looking for clarity, if that's what you're seeking, I don't believe Mike Shildt is a part of it. I got the release from the Padres. I think it's just AJ Preller speaking with the media. So it'll be a little bit of more of the same, and then we'll wait for the reporting to see who they ultimately interview.
How quick of a process do you think this is? Do we have a manager named by Halloween?
By Halloween, aren't there rules in baseball during the World Series where they prefer you don't name a manager? Maybe on an off day you can. Is that what Shildt was named?
They probably would have preferred that Shildt didn't announce his retirement on the day of the ALCS.
Yeah, it's game one. It's actually, it's 2 championship series games. That's a good question, Brent. By Halloween, I wanted
to say winter meetings, but that seems way too
way
long.
Before that. Wait. I would say this. I would be shocked if the Padres did not have a manager in place within 5 days of the World Series ending. That would shock me. So I expect it to play out over the course of the next week or two into a third week, because you're in the championship series. This will play out this week. And then you're into the World Series, let's say next week. And then once the offseason begins, you have the GM meetings, I want to say a handful of days after the World Series, typically in Carlsbad. So we'll get clarity. This is not, it's not like an offseason where you're waiting on Manny Machado to sign as a free agent and you get it during spring training. That's a 4 or 5 month process. It's very deliberate. Or look at this past offseason with Roki Sasaki. We did 100 consecutive shows on Roki because there's a posting period and there's speculation. This is not that. We'll have clarity. We're not going to have to wait for forever, which is a good thing. We'll have clarity on the Padres' next manager in the coming days and or coming weeks. And we'll have opinions on it. Is it the perfect hire? Is it the worst? No matter what our opinion is, it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be accurate. People they'll have options. It's a good job. They'll have options. Mike Shildt left it in a good place, and we'll see what they look for in the next manager of the Padres. All right, call right now, or should I do this on the other side, Brent, or should I do it right now? Other side. We have a giveaway for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll tell you what it is on the other side. Brent's back page. We're reacting to the news of Mike Shildt retiring as Padres manager on John and Jim.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Padres manager Mike Shildt announced his retirement today. Shildt had 2 years remaining on his deal, but said the grind of the baseball season had taken a severe toll on him mentally, physically, and emotionally. Game 2 of the ALCS is underway, and right now, and it just went final. The Mariners were all over the Blue Jays. It's a final 10-3. Seattle now takes a 2-0 lead over the Blue Jays. In the NLCS between the Dodgers and the Brewers, we are in the bottom of the second in Milwaukee, and we have no score. NFL, we have a doubleheader going on right now, and with about 2 minutes to go in the first half, the Falcons actually lead the Bills 21-7. And with about 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, the Bears lead the Commanders 3-0. Progressive Insurance can help you protect your home, auto, boat, motorcycle, ATV, and RV, and more. And if something wasn't mentioned that you had in mind, find out if it can be covered at progressive.com or at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE, because it probably can be.
All right, here until 6 p.m. on John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Brent's back page coming up. We also have a giveaway for you coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll give away tickets to the second annual Hal O Sprint 5K run, Sunday, October 19th. You can win the opportunity to run. It's kind of cool. It's good for you. So we'll tell you about that giveaway coming up shortly. We'll do that in the next 10 minutes or so. That's a 5K, whether you're running or walking. That's a 5K. We're giving away the opportunity to enter that coming up in just a few moments. Again, Brent's back page is coming up. So
it might be easier to run if you got some guy in a hockey mask chasing you.
Yeah,
a little motivation.
Is that what it is? So yeah,
I think that's what it sounds like.
Be on the lookout for Halloween surprises, themed photo moments, and delightfully spooky characters. Yeah. See, delightfully spooky isn't axe murderer.
It's objective. It's like comedy.
That's true. They're gonna pop up along. Dude, I would run this thing in 12 minutes. I'm running 3 miles in 12 minutes. People chasing me with axes.
New world record.
It'd be unbelievable. Okay. So a couple of things here on Mike Shildt being out. We are all reminded of what's playing out in the NLCS, right? Where you have former Padres managers or interim managers and Pat Murphy and Dave Roberts, right? That's what's playing out. The manager of the Brewers, Pat Murphy. The manager of the Dodgers, of course, Dave Roberts, who was on the bench in San Diego before being named manager of the Dodgers. Again, I go back to maybe some of the conversation from earlier. It's like, did we know in real time that Pat Murphy would be managing potentially in, a championship series or a World Series? Did you know when Dave Roberts was here, he'd be, World Series winning manager? Now, again, he's had the resources of the Dodgers. There's been ups and downs in that as well for Dave Roberts. Ask any Dodgers fan. That's going well over the last couple of years, obviously, for LA. But again, we mentioned it earlier, like who's managing the Mariners right now? Dan Wilson. Again, it's like, is it the manager or is it the team? And the manager matters. It's a little bit of the chicken egg conversation. I'm not the one to discount the manager entirely, but I do want to at least be sure to preface the fact that, yeah, managers matter, but you know what matters more? Everything, a lot of other things. A lot of the other pieces matter more than just the manager. Who's on the line here, Brent? What's his name?
Theory.
All right, let's go to Theory. Who wants to weigh in? 877-767-4760. That's 877-767-4760. And Theory, thanks for calling in. You're on with John and Jim.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
2 questions. Managers, why don't they pick somebody that has played for them before?
Okay.
I mean, common sense would tell you they understand the program, they understand the basics. I mean, Tony Gwynn Jr., he might need to pull a little money out and start working and manage. I mean, it's not unthinkable.
It's not unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. Listen, I love that call. I love Tony Gwynn Jr. Listen, he can go. He can listen on it. Here's the thing. I remember Tony, I was in the minor leagues working with the Phillies, and Tony Gwynn Jr. was a farmhand of the Phillies. It was the same time, obviously, his father passed. And then remember when he came back and he got the standing ovation in Philadelphia? Tony Gwynn Jr. is a terrific guy. And I've known him long before I was doing the job I do right now on San Diego radio. His point's an interesting one. It's not specifically about Junior. It's about sometimes there are unconventional approaches to it. There are a lot of former players that manage. Obviously, that's almost the rule, not the exception. I mean, there's all kinds of examples. But again, that's why when I start going down the path of, I can't predict it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's going to be AJ Ellis and here's why. It's going to be David Ross and here's why. It's going to be Tony Gwynn Jr. and here's why. There'll be some candidates. Someone's going to fill the job. I'm not going to completely poo-poo it no matter who it is. Again, I didn't think Mike Shildt was the sexiest hire. It worked out. A lot of people thought Bob Melvin was the sexiest hire. It didn't fully work out. What do you got?
Would you be opposed if they would hire somebody that's kind of like, when Sandberg and Mattingly got hired, to where it's like you don't really have, or even David Ross for that, to where you don't have any experience, you're just going to kind of learn on the fly, or would you rather have someone with at least a little bit of experience so you don't have to hold their hand the whole time?
Here's the thing, without the double switch, it's like that goes back to managing. To me, is a lot of managing everything outside the white lines too. It's managing the roster. It's managing egos. It's keeping the thing pointed in the right direction. Go find the right person with that credibility that can make the thing work. You have to know how to be an in-game manager, though, to your point. You can't waste a year when your core has a bunch of 33-year-olds, which is who the Padres core is, if you think about it. Like the Machados and the Bogarts and the Musgroves. It's not a young core. There's some young pieces. Merrill Tatis. There are young pieces. Mason Miller, obviously. But not. This isn't a core that you're going to be playing for titles with for forever. Shoot. I mean, you could argue that their window, are they really right in the true middle of their window? I don't think so. Manny's played 14 years in the major leagues. Xander Bogaerts' numbers in Boston were much better than they've been, obviously, in San Diego. Doesn't mean you have to have Xander Bogaerts performing like a Hall of Famer to win a World Series. But you bring up a good point. Like, do you want someone learning on the job when you need to win on the job right now when you're the Padres? But I could be convinced of it. I could be won over. There have been other first-time managers that have been great first-time managers. There's other veteran managers that have fallen flat on their face. I
don't know. I was kind of hit or miss with David Ross. There's times that I liked him a lot, but then there's other times where it's just like you could tell that he has, no experience. And, plus if they hire somebody that has no experience, I'll just use that caller's example. If they hire Tony, that, are they going to have to get some sort of, are they going to have to hire a very experienced like bench manager then?
Yeah, exactly.
To kind of
exactly what you do.
Sit there and guide the new manager and just kind of be like, okay, this is what it is, until he kind of gets it all under his wing. And
exactly. That's exactly right. I think they did that for Jace Tingler. Still didn't work out. I mean, here's the one thing you probably can't do. You can't turn to the absolute no name. Jace Tingler. I mean, that's like, you could have told me Jace Tingler was telling me anything. And you know what I mean? I never would have painted him as a future Padres manager. Now, if you told me tomorrow Albert Pujols is the next manager, I'd be like, okay, well, he hasn't managed, but it is Albert Pujols. Like there's that the immediate credibility of when you walk into the room. Now, the difference between like a Pujols, and you mentioned Sandberg, who again was the manager when I was in AAA with the Phillies, is at least he went through the rigors. He worked his way up. He rode buses in AA with the Cubs and then AAA with the Phillies before getting the Phillies gig, which he ultimately walked away from. And I forget if that was health related or not at the time, but he ultimately walked away from it. He was a very good manager. So yeah, would I love a first-time manager that was a former player that never managed or coached like in the minor leagues or anywhere professionally? That's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but it's less of a stretch than hiring like a Jace Tingler that's completely out of left field. So I don't think they go out of left field. Now, remember the last two, you know what happens a lot in coaching? Like watch the NFL. Your coach doesn't work, but he's an offensive-minded coach, you hire a DC. Your coach doesn't work, but he's a DC, you hire the OC. So their last two managers, I'm talking about the Padres, veteran experienced managers by and large. Melvin had all the experience in the world. Shildt had managed in St. Louis. So do you go down that path, or do you go with the former player that's got credibility, doesn't have all the coaching experience in the world, but maybe can learn a little bit on the job? The one path I don't expect them to walk down is the complete no-name path. I just, with this aging group, I think that has failure written all over it before it gets started. That would surprise me.
And I think if they went a complete no-name, I think the fans would throw a fit and revolt about how, Shilt's gone and we got this guy, when we had other, bigger or at least medium sized names out there that we could have picked from, and we chose this guy.
It would surprise me. Again, this is supposedly one of the better manager vacancies in baseball. You should be able to get a good candidate to fill this role. All right, call right now. First caller to 877-767-4760. Is this a pair of tickets, Brent? That's what it says in the rundown. Is it a pair of passes? Brent's checking. It's SeaWorld San Diego's second annual Hal-O Sprint 5K run. Are we signing 2 people up for the run or walk, or is it 1 person? Would be my question. Sunday, October 19th. Whether you run or walk, there's 3
pair of tickets.
Okay, so 2 entries, I guess, to run in the second annual Hal-O Sprint 5K run, Sunday, October 19th. Whether you run or walk, this 3.1 mile course will take you on a thrilling and chilling journey through the grounds of SeaWorld San Diego. That's pretty cool. If you want those passes, call 877-767-4760. Be on the lookout for Halloween surprises, themed photo moments, and delightfully spooky characters who pop up along the route. With the park decked out for SeaWorld's Hal-O Scream and Halloween Spooktacular events, there's no better way to experience SeaWorld and kick off your Halloween festivities. You want to run in that? Call right now. 877-767-4760. Brent's back page is next. No dull moments. As again, the Padres moving on from Mike Shildt. He announces his retirement from the organization. The new manager we'll see coming soon. AJ Preller will speak with the media tomorrow, and again, full reaction tomorrow on San Diego Sports 760. We'll have a wrap-up show for you tonight as well. It's been about a week or so since the season ended. We'll react tonight with a wrap-up show on YouTube. All right, Jim is back actually Wednesday because he's traveling tomorrow, but normally we have Jim's back page. Today we've got this. What have we missed?
Well, we'll start with, did you see what happened at the zoo yesterday, John?
Yeah, didn't the gorillas like break the glass?
Just one. A 10-year-old Western lowland gorilla. I almost said Iowa land. I was like, that's a weird gorilla. Lowland gorilla at the San Diego Zoo broke a layer of protective glass in its enclosure on Saturday. So it wasn't today, it was on Saturday. But the video has been all over social media.
I haven't seen the video.
It just pretty much runs up and like just punches it, and then it just spiderwebs it a little bit. But the glass has like 3 layers to it.
So this is just layer 1.
Yeah, it just spiderwebbed the first layer and kind of made everyone on the other side of the glass kind of panic for a second. But,
so what's going to happen? They're going to fix it?
Yeah, it's getting fixed. The gorilla enclosure is closed while they are getting it fixed. The gorilla's name was Denny. Denny broke through one of 3 layers of tempered glass that separates the animal from the zoo visitors in the forest habitat. They said there was another gorilla in the compound at the time, but Denny was not injured. And they said both gorillas, they'll be cared for behind the scenes while they're replacing the glass.
I wonder what like Denny was reacting to.
They said it's common. They said that happens a lot. It's just the thing that was uncommon about it is that it actually broke.
Breaking.
Yeah, they said that it happens a lot to where the gorillas will just spontaneously like run into the glass or punch it.
I mean,
but
they
it
are
usually doesn't break.
gorillas.
Yes.
Like it's kind of their job. And I could be like, oh, hi, fans. How are you? Let me sign autographs all day. Like they're not baseball players, they're gorillas.
They'd be better than the pandas if they did that.
Your new manager. He's got a temper on him. All right, what else you got?
You don't want to get tossed by that guy.
Right.
Let's see. I'll let you pick where we go from here. Halloween story or a Christmas story?
Well, let's start with Halloween.
I'll start with Halloween. Okay. They have come out with the top 10 cities that are the safest cities to trick or treat in this season.
like metropolitan cities?
Yes.
Okay, like New York, Philly, San Diego, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, what do you got?
Number 1 on the list is Yonkers, New York.
Okay.
Of these cities, 6 of them are among the 10 like cities with the lowest like violent crime rates and stuff. Like, well, if you're gonna go trick or treating at night, you want to go in a demilitarized zone or someplace that's safe.
Fair. That's fair. All right. So what's on the list?
2 is Naperville, Illinois.
Okay.
3, this kind of surprised me, New York, New York. 4 was Gilbert, Arizona. 5 was Frisco, Texas. 6 was Surprise, Arizona. 7 was Honolulu. 8 was Scottsdale. 9 was McKinney, Texas. And we have 1 California entry. Irvine was number 10.
Well, let me just make a point though. I mean, how often typically on Halloween are you like, oh, I'm not going to do it because I'm scared for my safety? By and large, you know what I mean?
Well, if you live in these towns, John, these are the 10 worst.
Let me hear 'em.
These are the 10 worst cities that have been determined the least safe.
Okay.
Number 1 is Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
2 is Richmond, Virginia. 3 is Little Rock, Arkansas. 4 is Oakland. 5 is Salt Lake City, Utah.
Wow.
6 is Albuquerque. 7 is St. Louis. 8 is Detroit. 9 is Cleveland, and 10 is San Bernardino.
But here's my question. Are they just saying these are the least safest places to trick or treat, or just least safe places?
Least safest to trick or treat. There's probably carryover for both, to be honest.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
This specifically, they're talking just in terms of trick or treat.
But hear me out how often, I know it happens nationally. If you say, hey, something happened, someone trick or treat and there was an incident, but it's not like every Halloween in every one of these unsafe cities, there's just rampant crime, is there?
No, but this is the thing that you have to think of. Right now, Jones is of the age where if you guys go trick or treating,
it's like 5 p.m.
No, you're going with him.
Oh yeah.
Think of this though for like the preteens and stuff
fair.
like that are going to go out by themselves. You're not going to want to drop them off in Memphis without parental supervision. But if Yonkers is that safe,
that's a good point.
Little Billy and Timmy can go wander around Yonkers by themselves without getting stabbed.
That's a good point. Do you have a final one for the?
Yes, because we have to have 3.
Yeah.
There is a new Star Wars Hallmark Christmas ornament that costs $100, and it requires a separate power cord purchase because it runs on its own power. You won't know what this is because you don't watch movies. This will be one that will get brought up again when Jim gets back. But there's this famous scene in the first Star Wars movie where they have like this chessboard, only it's like a hologram chessboard. So it's like holo chess. And they have turned that into a Star Wars Christmas ornament. The ornament has Chewie and another person in front of the hollow chess table, and it needs its own power source because the hologram chess pieces actually light up when you plug it in. So it's like an interactive thing. It's actually pretty cool. I would get it if I had room for a Christmas tree, and it did cost $100.
The more you know. Yeah. $100. Yeah, I mean, that's no joke.
But for being a Christmas tree ornament, it's pretty like extravagant because I've never heard of a Christmas ornament that required its own power source.
No, either have I.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
It's very cool. All right. Join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. More reaction. We'll react to what AJ Preller has to tell the media, or has to say to the media, as Mike Shildt earlier today announcing his retirement. Where do the Padres go from here? We'll be covering, of course, on San Diego Sports 760. J-Riff in tomorrow for John and Jim. Then Jim will be back here on Wednesday. I'm actually traveling for the next couple of days, seeing family. But we've got you covered, obviously, on the Padres offseason. If you missed anything today, sportssd.com, iHeartRadio app, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, or Spotify. Back tomorrow at 2 for Jim, who did nothing today. He's not here. And Brent, I mean, he probably did something, but nothing here. I'm John. Keep it here. This is San Diego Sports 760. Appreciate you guys.